Welcome to your learning journey on Nvidia certified generative AI LLMs. First of all, guys, thank you so much for enrolling to our course with Manifold AI Learning. My name is Nachiket Murthy and I'll be your instructor throughout this session. I'm an MLOps manager working in a top consulting firm, and I'm sharing my knowledge through Manifold AI Learning. I've got more than 11 years of experience in this field of data science, machine learning, and deep learning, and I've worked on various domains like retail, healthcare, banking, and insurance. I'm an Nvidia certified in generative AI, and I'm AWS certified in machine learning and AWS certified DevOps engineer. And my current role would include managing the team of 15 people, and I'm responsible for end-to-end implementation of data science projects, which are driven by machine learning and deep learning. My role includes taking care of the end-to-end pipeline, which means starting from the experimentation till the productionalization and the operationalization of these machine learning models in a production environment. I'm passionate about teaching, and I've trained more than 50,000 learners through live bootcamp, and I've taught more than 200,000 learners through self-paced courses. Now, these are some of the top courses which I've got an opportunity to publish with Manifold AI Learning. Do check out the course page for more details. Now, let's come back to our topic and let's understand what are some of the key features of this course. One of the key features is mastery of this generative AI foundation. Here, we'll start by ensuring that you have a rock solid understanding of the building blocks of generative AI, which means as part of your learning journey, you'll be understanding about machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, and all the topics that is required for you to master this generative AI. And then you'll explore the complexities of the large language models, and you'll also learn as how they actually work, how to adapt them to your specific requirement. And our course won't just be theoretical. We emphasize the NVIDIA-centric tools so that you as a learner can gain the practical experience in your notebook environment. And we believe learning by doing is essential. That's why you will have a hands-on project which mirror the real-world generative AI application. And our goal is to get you certified. So we are going to provide you the study resources and the thorough examination preparation that will boost your success. These are some of the testimonials that we have got from our previous learners. So you can check out the review page for more details. And the Manifold AI Learning community is more than 100,000 learners strong. So guys, we are excited to have you on board, and we look forward to seeing you on the class 1. In this video, let's understand as what makes this course a unique one. First of all, guys, direct certification alignment. The course content have been meticulously mapped to the examination. So as a result of this would ensure the optimal preparation for your success on the examination. And the another key feature of this course is experience mentorship. You'll be learning from these seasoned professionals with in-depth knowledge of generative AI and the Nvidia ecosystem. And the best part is, this course has been made accessible for varied skill levels. So overall, we strike a balance. We have got the beginner-friendly content, which delves into the machine learning and the deep learning fundamentals. And also, we also cover the advanced topics like LLM, fine-tuning, prompt engineering, and the monitoring of these large language models to prepare in alignment with the examination syllabus. Now let's have a quick review of the examination topics that we have got. We'll get started with the machine learning fundamentals. We'll focus on understanding the key concepts and their role in training process of machine learning models. So by understanding these fundamental concepts, you will be well positioned to tackle the machine learning fundamentals section of the NCA-GENL examination. Now, once the machine learning topic is completed, you will move to the fundamentals of deep learning, where you will concentrate on understanding the core principles behind each architecture. And you'll also understand how they are used for generative tasks. Now, in your examination, They might not delve into the deep mathematical details, but what we have observed from our experience from various learners is a foundational understanding of the important concepts such as backpropagation, activation function, and how layers are structured is found beneficial, and that is what you will be learning in the section of fundamentals of deep learning. Now, once that is completed, you will move on to the next section, which is about the large language models. Here, you would focus on the key areas like the LLM fundamentals, LLM training and optimization, evaluation metrics for large language models, and you'll also look into the real world applications of these LLMs. So, by mastering these key areas of LLMs, you will be well positioned to demonstrate your understanding in your examination and confidently navigate the exciting world of this generative AI. Then, you'll also focus on prompt engineering. So, as part of your learning journey, you will look into the fundamentals of prompt design, the techniques that is involved for effective prompts, the ethical consideration in prompt design, and by comprehending these key concepts, you will be well equipped to tackle the prompt engineering section of your NCA-GENL examination. Then you will move on to understand about the data analysis and the visualization technique. Even though there isn't much stress about this topic, so it will be beneficial if we go through some of the important topics about the data analysis for large language model, data visualization for large language model. By having a basic understanding of these data analysis and the visualization concept, you will be better equipped to handle the LLM outputs in the real world scenarios. Then you will focus on the experimentation. You will focus on understanding the core principles of designing and interpreting the LLM experiment. You will learn about the experiment design principles, techniques for large language model experimentation, and you'll also look into the evaluation metrics, data management and version control, and you'll also delve into the iterative learning and the improvement part as well. And another important aspect of this course is you'll also learn about the LLM integration and the deployment. So you will look into the integration strategies, deployment consideration, monitoring and maintenance, explainability and the interpretability of the large language model, ethical consideration of these AI models. So by understanding these crucial aspects of LLM integration and the deployment, you will be well positioned to take the NCA-GENL examination. And guys, not only these topics, we have also included the additional section on Nvidia ecosystem specific learning, which will help you to master the tools that are available as part of this Nvidia community. So guys, I've got one request from you. You as a learner matters a lot. Your voice matters. So your honest feedback will help us to improve this course. It is going to benefit the future learners as well. Now, if you love the experience, please take a moment to leave a review. Now, if you require any help, please post your questions on Q&A section or drop an email to support@Manifold AI Learning. So folks, thank you so much again for enrolling with us, and I look forward to seeing you on the class 1. So see you next time. Hey guys, welcome back to your learning journey. Now in this section, we'll be getting started with one of the key topic for our generative AI certification, that is the machine learning fundamentals. Now, when we talk about this generative AI, these generative AI offers the exciting possibilities, but challenges. In order to translate the huge potential into the practice, you need the robust machine learning toolkit. That means you need to have the strong basics of machine learning to be able to work with generative AI in a confident manner. Now, even the certification tests you regarding some of the fundamental aspects of machine learning. And this section is there for you to prepare you to tackle such common challenges whenever you're appearing in the examination. So as you progress in this section, you'll be learning how to classify the data, how to optimize the machine learning model performance using the various techniques, how you can predict the outcome through the various tasks such as regression, classification. You'll also learn to understand how to analyze the time series data and many such exciting things as you progress in your learning journey. Now, as I mentioned, guys, these skills that you'll be learning in this section are fundamental when you're working in generative AI, even in real world applications as well. One of the key reasons that we have prepared this module in this way because so if I take up an example as let's say regression analysis. Now by understanding this regression analysis like the linear regression, it's actually important for you to calibrate your generative models to produce the output that closely resemble the training data. And the knowledge of classification algorithms like the logistic regression, decision tree classifier, SVM, and so on, they are actually crucial like sentiment analysis or the content categorization task when you are working with generative AI. And the knowledge of decision tree and ensembles, these techniques will help you to identify the patterns within the large data set which are used to train the large language models. And basically, they can also be used to improve the interpretability and the robustness of the generative models. And as I mentioned earlier, you'll also learning about the hyperparameter tuning and finding the best parameters of the model. So these are some of the essential techniques for evaluation of the large language models. And we'll also dive into the unsupervised learning like the clustering algorithm. If I take this example of clustering, so they're actually used to group the similar data, which can be helpful whenever you're preparing the training data for generative models. Now, the question that you might get is, how do you get started as a learner or how do you approach this section? Now, I would recommend you take the practice quiz because if you're appearing for the generative AI examination, so I'm sure some of you will be having some knowledge of machine learning or deep learning. So since this focus is about the machine learning fundamentals, take this quiz on the machine learning. Okay. Now these quiz that currently present is to take you through as what kind of questions that you might get and also focus on the key topics that you have to focus on. Now, wherever you have come across the areas of improvement, review those topics as per your analysis and go through those specific part of the videos. Now, in this section, in your learning journey, so the overall course has been designed such a way that I'll be taking you through in an hands-on manner. So let's take a look into the overall contents of this machine learning fundamentals. If you take a look into it, we'll be covering various topics, which starts with types of machine learning, linear regression and its evaluation metrics, the regularization techniques, logistic regression, gradient descent, decision tree, loss functions, hyperparameter optimization techniques, the KNN, SVM, ensemble learning, unsupervised learning like the K-means, hierarchical clustering, DB scan. So we have divided the overall topics of machine learning into the important topics videos of the machine learning. So depending on the outcome from your practice quiz, I want you to focus on those specific videos. Now, wherever possible, we have tried to gone through in an hands-on manner so that you as a learner not only understand the theory, but also look into it from the practical implementation as well, which means we will have a hands-on coding with Python programming language. Now remember guys, the knowledge of programming or knowledge of you to perform the coding is not tested in the examination. But we have taken that approach because that's one of the common approach where we have seen most of the learners would be able to follow along. And that's the reason we have taken the hands-on approach to discuss each of the important algorithms that we have got so that you get an idea as how the overall flow would look like. So first, complete the practice questions, go through those specific videos, and all the hands-on files that are required for you to practice in this section is part of our GitHub repository under the folder of machine learning fundamentals. All right, guys. So I wish you all the very best for this upcoming practice quiz as well as the upcoming learning journey. So I look forward to seeing you next time. In this video, let's start with the basic question. What exactly is this machine learning and why is it very important for us? See, here when we talk about machine learning, so machine learning is a part of applied mathematics and the computer science. In case of machine learning, we make use of tools from mathematical discipline like the statistics, probability, and the optimization theory in order to extract the patterns that are present in the given data set. The core idea from machine learning is we are going to learn from the data set or learn from the examples. So we prepare a data set with the examples and the machine learning system learns from this given data set. In other words, what we do is we are going to give the system, that is the input, as well as the desired output. We'll provide both input and the desired output for my given system, and the system is going to figure out how to perform the conversion between input to output. So this is the main idea between on this machine learning. So we are going to send the desired input to a system. Okay, this system is going to receive the desired input and the output, and this system is going to decide what and how to perform the conversion between this input and output. To give you an example, I can collect a data set with description about the bike and their prices. And then we are going to provide a machine learning model with this data set, and we are going to teach it by showing as price of the bike as well as the bike itself. And this process is called as the training, or sometimes known as fitting. So I'll have my system, and for the system I'll be sending my input and the desired output. In this scenario, the description about my bikes as well as the prices of the bike. I'll provide both the information to my system. I'm going to call this system as a ML system, that is my machine learning system, and I'll give both of this data to this ML system, and my ML system is going to perform the activity what we call it as fit. That is, it will learn the pattern between the bike and the prices, and once it learns the pattern, what we will end up is having a system or a trained model. We call it as a trained model. This will be the overall output. So this is what a machine learning is. In the scenario of machine learning, we will collect the data set, and here in the data set we will have both input and the output, that is desired output. Now with both of those combination, we are going to generate a trained model. So whenever we are training, we'll make use of both input and the output. Now once the training is complete, we can use this trained model, and then we can just give out the description of the new bike. I can send the description of the new bike, and then I can use this trained model to generate the prices of the bike. So this is called as the prediction. Okay, so all we need for machine learning is a data set in which for each input, it could be the bike, we have the desired output, that is the price. As you can clearly see, this process is very different from the traditional software engineering approach. So without machine learning, if you think about it, the analyst and the developers, they actually have to look into the data set and they have to manually try to find the patterns. But after that, they actually come up with some logic, which is like the set of rules for converting the input to the desired output. And then they are going to explicitly encode these rules using a programming language like the Java or Python programming language, and the overall result that we would see is called as a software. So in case of traditional software engineering, okay, in case of traditional software engineering, you can see that I'll be providing both data and code. Okay, now using this combination of data and code, so I'll be writing the rules in the traditional software with the help of programming language, and I'll be generating the output. In summary, the difference between the traditional software engineering, that is the traditional software system approach, and the system which is based on machine learning is, here in case of machine learning, we give the system, that is the input and the output data, and the result is a model. Okay, now this result is a model which can transform the input into the required output. The difficult work is actually being done by the machine. We need only supervise that training process so that we can make sure that the model is actually good. In contrast, in the scenario of this software engineering, that is traditional software engineering, we actually find the patterns in the data ourselves and then we write the code which converts this data into the required outcome using the manually discovered patterns. So this is the main difference between the traditional programming approach and the machine learning. Now that you have understood what exactly is this machine learning, now let's go ahead and understand let's go ahead and understand the types of machine learning. See, when we talk about the types of machine learning, practical machine learning. So here, when we talk about this machine learning and compare it with the rule-based system, let's take up a scenario. So to illustrate the difference, okay, so the use case that I'm going to consider is a spam detection. Okay, I'm sure everyone is aware of the spam detection. See, a spam detection is a system which we are trying to build, which will help us to say that whether a particular email that I have got, whether it is a spam email or not. Okay, so let's assume that I'm going to build a system which is capable of detecting the spams. Now, we have the system that has been built and the users have started complaining that they are receiving some unsolicited email with the advertisement. Now, in order to solve this, so the expectation is we want to create a system which is going to mark whatever the emails that I'm going to receive, they have to be marked as whether it is a spam email or whether it is a non-spam email. So this is the kind of system that I have to build. Okay, now the users started complaining that they are receiving some unsolicited email. Now, the obvious way to solve this problem is look at the emails that we are actually receiving. For example, we can actually check the sender. We can also look into the content of those emails. Now, if you find that there is actually a pattern in these spam email, then what we can do is we can list down the discovered patterns and actually come up with the simple rules to catch these messages. For example, I can come up with a simple rule that says as if sender is equal to prices at the rate online.com. I'm just giving you a random example. If the sender is prices at the rate random.com, like at online.com, then I'm going to classify it as spam. And here, if the title, okay, if the title says lottery, okay, then I'm going to call it as a spam. Maybe I'll write one more logic, okay, one more condition that says as if the title says winner, then spam. So here I have come up with three rules based on the examples that I have got. So the three rules are: if the sender is prices at the rate online.com, then it is spam. If the title says lottery, then it is spam. If the title says winner, then it is spam. Then if this system does not come across any of these conditions, then I'm going to say it's a non-spam email, which is a good email. So this is a rules that I have found from the examples of the spam email. Now, once I have found these rules, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'll start writing the program. Okay, I'll just start writing a computer program, and maybe I'll be using the computer program to go ahead and implement this logic. For example, I might make use of the Python programming language, and I'm going to create a spam detection service. Now, once I create this spam detection service, I'm going to ensure that whatever the new email that I'm going to receive, so this email will be now sent to my spam detection service. So once I send this new email to the spam detection service, my spam detection service is going to tell me whether the new email is a spam email or a non-spam email. Okay, so Here, what we have done in this scenario is we have found the rules from ourselves by looking into the examples that we have got. And then once we have found the rules, we have written the logic in a coding environment, in this example by using the Python programming. Then I have built it as a service. Now, whatever the new email that I receive, I'm going to send the new email to that spam or non-spam service, which will help me to classify whether the new email belonging to a spam email or a non-spam email. Now, what we have found is after this, I would say implementation, it was able to succeed at first, but we started seeing few more complaints from the users. So we started observing that, okay, there are some few more scenarios where users are still receiving the spam email. Now, what we have done is, okay, the user started receiving more and more emails. And now once we started observing this new pattern, okay, we have found there are some additional new patterns as well. So what I have found is, okay, so now this time they are not using the email sender as prices@online.com. Now what they have done is they have actually changed to a new website which says that promotions@online.com. Then they started coming up with a new word. They have mentioned as, so they started using a few more different words that says as 100% discount, and I would say great chance. So these are the new words that they started using in their email. Now, apart from that, they started using the other domains as well. Now, there are other domains that they are now using. They are using the other domains like promotions.com. That's another website. They started using it. And even in the body of the email, they are talking about deposit. So if these are the conditions that are met, okay, you will say that additional to the old condition, if these new conditions are met, then you are going to say that it belongs to a spam email, otherwise it's a non-spam email. So what we have done is, even for the next iteration, we have analyzed the existing data, and once we have analyzed the existing data, we have updated our rules. And once we have updated our rules over here, next we are going to send a new email, whatever that we receive, to the updated email classification service. Now this email classification service can help us to classify the given email as a spam email or a non-spam email. But there is a problem with this approach. See, when we are building these kind of rule-based system, as and when the trick used by these spam email senders, as and when these trick gets changed, at that time it is very difficult to maintain and understand. And in some scenarios, it becomes very impossible, I would say, to include the new patterns in the code without breaking the existing logic. So in the long run, it is very difficult to maintain and adjust the existing rules such that the spam detection service which we have created would work efficiently. And by working efficiently, that means I would expect that the email to be classified to a spam or a non-spam. So it is very difficult to maintain such kind of rule-based system. And this is the kind of situation where the machine learning can actually help us. In case of machine learning, we typically don't attempt to extract or to get the exact pattern manually. So what we do is we are going to give this task to the statistical method. Now by giving the system a data set with emails marked as spam or non-spam, then we will also describe each object, that is the each email, with the set of its characteristics, which we call it as features. Now based on this information, the system is going to try to find the patterns between the data and the target label without any human help. So in the end, it is going to learn how to combine the features such a way that the spam messages are marked as spam and the good messages are non-spam. So with the case of machine learning, the problem of maintaining the handwritten rules or hand created rules would go away. Now whenever a new pattern comes, that means if the spam email senders comes up with a new trick,
then I don't have to worry. I can just send in this new data to my system. My system is going to learn the pattern, and it will learn the pattern, and it will update its rules automatically because learning is being done by the machine itself using the statistical methods. So it would learn the pattern, and finally it will also help us to classify the new data as well. Okay, so this is the overall idea and the difference between the traditional programming approach and a machine learning approach. Now, once you have understood this traditional programming and machine learning approach, the difference between them, here when we talk about the applications of machine learning, the applications of machine learning are endless. It can be applied to any domain wherever the data is present. Like for example, suggesting the price of the bike or predicting whether the customer is going to stop renewing my service or not. And suppose if I want to classify the documents to one of the class or find the groups in a given data set. So these are all the use cases where the machine learning can be really helpful. Now that you have understood about the machine learning, now I'll stop the video over here. In the next video, we'll talk about the types of machine learning, and then we will go ahead and get started with a typical process that is involved in the case of machine learning. So I'll see you in the next video. In the last video, you have learned about the machine learning and the core idea of this machine learning. Now in this video, let's have a look into the types of machine learning, and then that would give us the foundation for starting our learning journey with machine learning models, which is the core aspect of this section. So when we talk about the machine learning, depending on types of data that we are dealing with and the type of task that we are working, so we basically have three types of machine learning. One is supervised machine learning, unsupervised machine learning, and reinforcement learning. Now, supervised machine learning is a scenario where we are dealing with a labeled data set. Now, when I talk about this labeled data set, here I've got the X as well as Y. That means I've got the feature along with the target outcome. In case of unsupervised learning, so we basically have only the features present in the given data set. And in case of reinforcement learning, here this is a kind of a system where the system tries to improve itself through the experience. Now, in the case of reinforcement learning, it actually learns in a trial and error manner. So that is the overall idea about this reinforcement learning system. Now, this is a currently a highly research field where we are trying to build a system which can improve itself from the experience. So we still have a long way to go in this research area, but most of the application that we see in the real time is around the supervised machine learning and the unsupervised machine learning. So in case of supervised machine learning, we basically have the X and Y, that is the features and the target. Now under the supervised machine learning, we've got various machine learning models like linear regression, logistic regression, decision tree, random forest algorithm, boosting algorithm, bagging algorithm. So like this, we've got various statistical models which will help us to find the patterns and establish the relationship between X and Y. Now under the unsupervised machine learning, we basically have only features. That means we just have X and there is no information about the target Y, which means at this point of time, we do not have any information as what is the expected output in the scenario of this unsupervised learning. So we try to find the patterns in the data set. Now this pattern can be as simple as grouping the data points depending on the how it actually look like, which comes under the task of clustering. And like this, we will try to find the various patterns in a given data set, which will help me to group the data and help me to further understand the data in an efficient manner. So this is about the unsupervised learning. And under the reinforcement learning, we make use of the systems which are based on the hidden Markov model or Markov chain based models, where we try to learn from our previous experience. So these are the types of machine learning that we have got in general, depending on the type of data and the task that we are performing. Now, if you refer to the official documentation page, you're expected to know about the machine learning models in a deep level so that you'll be able to understand and answer the questions which are related to the application level. So going further, in the next video, we'll start our first learning journey, that is with supervised machine learning journey, with one of the most commonly used model, that is linear regression algorithm, from the perspective of the certificate examination. So we'll stop the video over here and let's continue in the next video with our machine learning model, that is linear regression. Welcome back to your learning journey in this machine learning. So here, when we talk about a supervised machine learning, the general flow that we follow in machine learning is as follows. First, we'll get the data set, and then we will split the data set into two parts, that is training set and the test set. And once we split the data into two parts, we'll then go ahead and apply the machine learning algorithm on the training data set and generate a trained machine learning model. And then on the new data that I have got, I'm going to evaluate this trained machine learning model and have a validation on the performance, and I'll see whether the machine learning model is working as per the expectation or not. So the first machine learning algorithm that we are going to take a look at is the linear regression algorithm. Now, linear regression algorithm is a type of supervised machine learning algorithm which helps us to find the patterns between the data set. And one of the key things that you need to remember in this linear regression algorithm is this comes under the supervised machine learning. And under the supervised machine learning, we are going to perform the task called regression. So we say that a machine learning task has regression when I'm predicting, okay, when we are predicting a real value. That means if the target output y, which is numerical in nature or the continuous value in nature, at that time we are going to say that we are actually performing the task of regression. So whenever we are working with the data, you just have to check whether you have both x and y. If you have got x and y, then it's a supervised machine learning. And if your y is numerical in nature, obviously it will be a regression task. Now, this linear regression algorithm can be implemented in various ways. I can make use of stats module, or I can also make use of scikit-learn library. To keep it simple, so I'm going to make use of scikit-learn library's linear regression class, and then we are going to apply it on a given data set. So we'll apply the entire flow on that given data set and we'll try to visualize the data, and then we'll also look into the important assumptions that are made by this linear regression algorithm. Okay, so let's get started and let's have a look into this linear regression algorithm. Here I'm now in my Jupyter notebook. So the dataset that I'm going to use is the advertising.csv file. So this is the file that I'll be using right now. So I'll start by loading the necessary libraries. Import pandas as pd, and I'm going to import numpy. Then I'm going to say matplotlib inline, and we'll also import. Then we'll import the train test split from sklearn.model_selection. I'm going to import train test split. This is the function that I'll be using to split the data into two parts. Then we will also go ahead and load the linear regression algorithm. This is present inside this sklearn.linear_model. I'm going to import linear regression. Now, once we import the necessary libraries, I'll start by loading the data set. df is equal to pd.read_csv, and the file is advertising.csv, and will display first few entries of this data frame. So this is how the first few entries of this data frame would look like. So here on this data, one thing is pretty much clear. So we've got a column that is unnamed 0, which is an invalid column in this data set. So let's go ahead and drop that column. So df.drop, and here the column that I want to drop is unnamed, 0. Okay, and I'm going to mention in place is equal to true. So in this way, I'll drop that column and I'll display first few entries for validation. Yes, we have dropped that column. Now, first things first, here we will have to first go ahead and identify what is the given features and what is the target value. In this given data set, the input features are TV, radio, newspaper, and the target column is the sales column. So we are trying to establish a relationship between the spend on TV, radio, and newspaper and its linkage to the sales of a product. So these X that we call it, these are my inputs, and this Y, that is the sales, is called as the output. From the statistic side, this input is also known as independent variable, and output variable is also known as a dependent variable. Okay, and this input is also known as feature. This output is also known as target. So all these are equivalent words. All these are equivalent words. Input, independent variables, features, all these are equivalent words. These would mean the same thing. And similarly, output, dependent variable, and target would actually mean the same thing. So in case of supervised learning, I need to have both input as well as output. We can clearly say that in this data set, using this, I can actually perform the supervised machine learning. And another key thing is, if you look into the target column, that is the output column, so this column is actually numerical in nature. Since it is numerical in nature, the task it belongs to is the regression task. Are you clear? Excellent. So we are trying to establish a relationship between this X, that is my input, with the Y, that is my output. Now, how do we establish a relationship? Well, each and every machine learning algorithm has a numerical representation or a mathematical way to establish this relationship between X and Y. When we talk about the linear regression algorithm, here the linear regression algorithm is given by y hat is equal to a plus b into x. Now here a is a y-intercept term and b is a slope. So this equation that you see right now, this is an equation of simple linear regression. In case of simple linear regression, I'll have only one feature. My x is only one feature. If I have multiple x, that means if I have multiple features, just like you have seen in this example, the equation is given by y hat is equal to theta naught plus theta 1 x1 plus theta 2 x2 up to theta n xn. Okay, here x1, x2, x3, these are nothing but the features. Okay, and theta 1, theta 3 up to theta n, these are the coefficients of this linear regression algorithm, and theta naught is actually my intercept. Okay, this is actually my intercept for this linear regression algorithm. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is, when I perform the fit using the linear regression class, okay, at that time I'll be trying to fit, that means I'll be training my training data such that the x and y are related with the help of this equation. So what will be the outcome? Well, the output that I would get from the linear regression model is coefficients and the intercept, which are nothing but the crux of the pattern that is found between x and y. Okay, so with this basic understanding, let's go ahead and apply it on our given data set. So I'll start by importing the same from sklearn. So since I've already imported it, I'll say LR is equal to linear regression. And here, before I apply the fit on this given data set, first thing is I have to split the data into two parts, xtrain comma xtest, ytrain comma ytest is equal to train test split x comma y comma random state is equal to 4, okay, and test size is equal to 0.3. So with this way, I'll be splitting the data in the ratio of 70-30. Next, once I split the data, next I'll just go ahead and apply the linear regression model. So I'm actually getting an error. Let me just fix that. So I'll be separating the x and y, df.drop. So I'll say sales as the target column, and I'll mention the remaining columns as the input. Okay, I'll be splitting the data in this way, that is x and y. Now once I split the data, if I now display the shape of my x train as well as my x test, we can validate that whether the data has been split into two parts. Okay, it says there is an error. Let's just fix that. Yep. So if you look into our data set, in this data set there are actually 200 rows, and when we have split the data in the ratio of 70 and 30, I've got 140 rows in my training data and 60 rows in my test data. Okay, so this is how I have actually split the data set. Now let's find the relationship between x and y. So lr.fit x train comma y train. Now once I have performed the fit, see, as an output I'll be getting the coefficients. These are the coefficients 0.04533, 0.01, 0.177, 0.00553. So these are the coefficients, and if I go ahead and get the intercept, this is the intercept value. So you can clearly observe that in this example, my machine learning algorithm has got the data as an input and it has generated the parameters as the output. So the patterns between x and y has been learned from this given data set. Okay, now that is the crux of machine learning. Now, once we have trained the machine learning algorithm, this is my train model. So on this train model, I can generate the output for the unknown data. So when I say generating the output on the unknown data, what it means is, let's say I've got a new data, let's say test data. Test data is a data where I have actually set out separately, which I'll be using it to generate the output. Now on this test data, I can generate the prediction. So I can say ypred test is equal to lr.predict, and I can send in my x test. Okay, this will help me to generate the prediction using this x test. Okay, so that is how I can generate the output for the unknown data. So I have trained the machine learning model, I've generated the prediction for the unknown data, which is exactly the flow that we have just completed. In case of training, this is how we'll be doing. On the test data, see, I'm generating the prediction. Now once I've generated the prediction, obviously we will have to do the evaluation. So we have to do the evaluation of the linear regression. Now when we talk about the evaluation of this linear regression algorithm, so evaluation functions helps us to measure how well my model is actually performing. Now, depending on the machine learning task, we can actually use the relevant evaluation function. Talking about linear regression, we have got mean absolute error, we have got mean squared error, we have got root mean squared error, and we also have R2 score or the R square value. So let's understand these evaluation functions. See, when we talk about this evaluation functions, so basically the evaluation functions helps us to evaluate whether the machine learning model's performance is as per our requirement or not. So that is the overall idea or the goal of evaluating any model. So to evaluate, I would need to have my true value. I'll call it as y true. This is from my given data set. And I would also have the ypred, that is the prediction
from my machine learning model. Now, let's say my y true values are 85, 59, 65, 45, 30, and let's say 98. And my predicted values, so assume that these are the predictions that I have from my linear regression algorithm after I have performed the training on the training data. So my prediction values are 89, let's say 57, 66, 42, maybe 28, and 90. Okay, these are the values of prediction. Now, if you compare it right away, obviously nowhere the prediction values is actually same as the y true. That means there is a difference between the predicted value with the true value that we are expecting. Now, in such scenarios, we need a mathematical way to measure how much mistake that I'm doing. And that is where the evaluation functions comes into picture. The evaluation function in machine learning helps us to evaluate a machine learning model to see and to help us as how it is performing on a new data set. Because at the end of the day, we want to utilize this model on a new data set, which will overall help us in finding the generalization on the data points, which will help us to generate the prediction in a much better way. Okay, now when I have got the predicted value and the true value, if I want to check and evaluate the model, one function that I'll be using is mean absolute error. So when I say mean absolute error, it basically it's the absolute difference between the predicted value and the expected value, that is true value, that is absolute difference between these two values. So if I find the absolute difference between these two values, see 89 minus 85, 4, 57 minus 59, it is minus 2. That means absolute difference is, I'll ignore the negative sign, it will become 2. So 65 and 66, 1, 42 and 45, 3, 28, 30, 2, 90, 98, 8. So in this way, I can find the absolute error, that is the absolute difference between my predicted value and the output value. Now, to generalize with a single value, what I'll be doing is I'll calculate the mean of this absolute error. Okay, this calculation of mean is actually known as mean absolute error. Okay, this is actually known as the mean absolute error, and in this example 3.3333 is the mean absolute error for this given data. Clear? Great. Now there's one more common function that I'll be using, that is called as mean squared error. It's called as mean squared error. So in case of mean squared error, whatever the absolute difference that I'm going to get it, I'm going to perform the squaring. I'll say C2 multiplied with C2, and I'll do the same thing for each and every value that I've got here. See, I've done the squaring. So once I do the squaring, okay, once I do the squaring and then calculate the average of this squared error that I've got, that will be my mean squared error. And in this example, the mean squared error is 16.333. And apart from this, I have mentioned that there is something called as root mean squared error. So root mean squared error is actually the square root of mean squared error. That means square root of whatever the mean squared error that I have got, that will be my root mean squared error. So these are the various evaluation functions which will help us to evaluate a regression task. Okay, now if I want to find these evaluation metric for the given model, so from sklearn.metrics, I'm going to import mean squared error, mean absolute error. So along with that, I'll also import the R2 score. Okay, now in order to calculate the mean squared error, I'm going to write a print function like this: mean squared error y test comma y pred test. And in the same way, I'm going to calculate
the root mean square error and the mean absolute error. See, if I want to calculate the root mean squared error, in the same function of mean squared error, I have to send the parameter that says as squared is equal to false. Okay, this is going to return the root mean squared error. And if I want to find the mean absolute error, I just have to call the function mean absolute error, and this will help me to display the mean absolute error. See, for the given data set, the mean squared error is 2.22 and the root mean squared error is 1.49, and the mean absolute error for this given data set is 1.21. Okay, and apart from this, an important metric that we have got, especially during the evaluation of the regression model, is R2 score. So the R2 score tells us as how much variance can be explained by the given features. So variance is nothing but the information. Okay, how much variability can be explained by using that column, that is by using these features about the target column. Suppose if I can predict the complete y with the help of my x, then I can say that there is 100% variance can be explained by the given set of features. At that time, the R2 score or the R2 coefficient will give me the output as 1. So if my predicted line falls directly on the data points, that's when the R2 score will be equal to 1. And if I have the data points closer to my straight line, that is a linear regression line, at that time the value of R2 score will be closer to 1. If the data points are actually distributed in a random way across the line, then the R2 score will be closer to 0. So overall, this helps us to understand, okay, how much variance can I explain from this given data set. So if I calculate the R2 score for this given data, the R2 score is 0.91, which means from this given set of features, that is the values of TV, radio, and newspaper, I can predict with 91% of accuracy, because I can actually explain 91% of variance that is present in this given output variable. Okay, these are the ways in which that I can evaluate my linear regression algorithm. Okay, now once I'm satisfied with the results that I'm getting, I can go ahead and generate the prediction on the new data as well, and I can deploy it as a service and use it for the future prediction. So that is the overall methodology that we will be implementing any machine learning model. In the next video, we will talk about the regularization of linear regression algorithm, and along with that, we'll also look into the assumptions of linear regression algorithm. So I'll see you in the next video. In this video, we are going to talk about the regularization of the linear regression algorithm. See, when we talk about the loss function of this linear regression algorithm, one of the common loss function that is being used, that means wherever the data that we have got is being fit on an algorithm, this x and y is being fit to my linear regression algorithm, it is being fit to the equation of y is equal to theta naught plus theta 1 x1 plus up to theta n xn. Now the goal is to find the values of theta naught, theta 1, theta 2 up n, such that when I input the value of x, I'll be getting the output of y. Now, in order to reach the best values of the theta naught, theta 1, theta 2 up to theta n, in order to get the better values of the same, here the system is going to make use of what we call it as a loss function. Now, one of the commonly used loss function is the squared error loss. It's the squared error loss. So for this squared error loss value, okay, by referring to this value, the system is going to decide as, okay, how it has to update the values of theta. So it will find the values of theta naught, theta n such that yes, this squared error loss is minimum. Now what happens is, in some scenarios, even though we use the squared error loss, in some scenarios, the performance of the linear regression algorithm might not be as effective as we would expect. In such scenarios, we would see that even though like we have tried to find the best parameters, but the value of loss is very high. In such cases, what we do is we are going to apply the regularization for this linear regression algorithm. Now here, when we talk about this regularization, there are three types of regularization that are actually applicable in the scenario of this linear regression algorithm. The first regularization that we have is the lasso regularization. And here in this lasso regularization, which is also known as L1 regularization, we are going to add the constant values. Yes, we are going to add the parameters itself, okay, which will be the absolute magnitude of the coefficient as the penalty term to my loss function. So I'm adding an additional penalty term for my loss function. So in case of this lasso regularization, the equation or the overall idea is something like this. Okay, the overall idea is for the lasso regression loss function, the goal is to find the minimum value such that the squared error loss term, I'll say squared error loss plus lambda into absolute value of this theta. So this is the overall representation of this lasso loss function. See, the idea is this squared error loss is what we have, that finding the minimum of squared error loss. It is the general loss criteria that we use it whenever we are performing the fit with the linear regression algorithm. Now on top of that, I'm going to add the absolute value of the magnitude of coefficient. Now here, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to multiply it with the lambda. So this lambda is another hyperparameter where I can tune this value to decide as how much effect that I need to have from this L1 term. Okay, if my lambda is equal to 1, then that would mean that I'm adding the absolute value. And if I say lambda is equal to 0, that means I'm actually removing this term itself, which is equivalent to linear regression algorithm. If I say lambda is equal to 0.5, then I'll multiply the absolute sum of values, whatever I'm getting, by 0.5. Now by applying this lasso regularization, so what this would tends to do is this is going to tend to make the coefficients to absolute 0. Now you might be wondering as how does it make it absolute 0? See, just think about it. Okay, so here in this case you have the value of loss function, that is squared error loss, and along with that you also have the term which says as absolute value of theta. Okay, this is what we have got. Now what is squared error loss? Squared error loss is y minus y hat whole square. What does y hat is made up of? Y minus, I would say, theta naught plus theta 1 x1 up to theta n xn. So this is the squared error loss that we have got. Maybe I'll have it as squared something like this. Okay. So here, if you consider the squared error loss, I've got the parameters theta naught, theta 1, theta 2 up to theta n. Okay. And along with that, I have the additional term. Now, since I have the additional term, let's illustrate it with a very simple example. Let's say the general value of loss that I'm getting is 5,000. Now, when I perform the addition, that is when I perform the summation of the absolute values of coefficients, I'm getting the value as another 1000. So now in case of L1 regularization, I'm getting the total loss as 6,000 because 5,000 plus 1,000. Now 6,000 is the outcome of sum of squared error loss and the absolute, yes, and the absolute sum of the absolute magnitude of these parameters. Now in such scenarios, yes, in such scenarios, if I want to reduce the value of loss function, I will be forced to reduce the value of coefficients. But the reason because see y is given from the data, x is also given from the data. Only the parameters, that is theta naught, theta 1, theta 2 is the one that is in under my control to reduce the value of loss, which in turn forces my algorithm to reduce the values of these coefficients furthermore. So when we are applying this L1 regularization, it actually tends to make the coefficients to absolute zero. The reason because we are going to add the absolute value of magnitude. So here, in case if I want to apply this lasso regularization, so I can just import the model from sklearn dot linear underscore model. I'm going to import lasso, and I can initialize my lasso regularization algorithm, that is the regression algorithm. And here for this lasso, I can also control the value of lambda that I had shown in the equation. So there are various parameters in this lasso. So we can actually go ahead and check out the same. So here the value of alpha is something. So using this value of alpha, we can decide as how much importance that I have to give for the summation of the parameters. Okay, by default it is set as 1. Okay, now I can go ahead and perform the fit on my training data, xtrain comma ytrain, and after I perform the fit, we can generate the prediction on the test data. Once we generate the prediction, so this time I'll just calculate the R2 score. So if I calculate the R2 score, the R2 score is 0.9122, which means with the application of lasso regression, so the overall R2 score, that means the explainability of the features about the target is still the same. Maybe I can fine tune it by changing the values of alpha. So we can either fine tune it and see whether we would get a better performance on this given data or not. Okay, now this is about the L1 regularization, and in the same way we also have L2 regularization. Now this L2 regularization is also known as ridge regression. Now in the scenario of this ridge regression, what we do is we are going to add squared magnitude. See, we are going to add the squared magnitude of coefficients as penalty term. So here when we are adding this squared magnitude of coefficients as the penalty term for the loss function, what this is going to result is, this is going to result in getting the value of coefficients closer to 0, but yes, it is going to never, okay, never set the value of coefficients to absolute 0. So this is something that you need to remember. Now when it comes to this ridge regression, you can think of it as instead of absolute value, you'll just take the square of it. That's all, team. So when it comes to the implementation, coming to the implementation is very simple. We'll just import the ridge regression, okay, and we'll initialize the same. And if I calculate the R2 score, see with this ridge regularization, I'm getting the same output like before. Now apart from this lasso and ridge, we also have another regularization technique that is called as elastic net regularization. In this elastic net regularization, it is the combination of L1 and L2. Okay, it's a combination of L1 and L2, where in this case we are going to specify how much L1 regularization that I have to apply, and then how much L2 regularization that I have to apply, and this we can control it with the help of the parameter. And this regularization method is called as the elastic net regularization method. So I'm going to apply it on this given data set. So I'll initialize my elastic net, and if I perform the fit, so we are getting the similar performance as we have got earlier. So for the elastic net regularization, we have the L1 ratio and the alpha. So with the combination of L1 ratio and the alpha, we can actually apply how much L1 I should apply. That it means how much L1 regularization to be applied on my given data set and how much L2 regularization to be applied on the data set. So this is the importance of regularization techniques in case of the regression task. Now, we will revisit the topic of regularization even when we are talking about deep learning. So during the deep learning, we also can add the regularization methodology over there in our deep learning neural network, which will also help us in preventing the overfit in the deep learning neural network. Okay, so this was about the regularization methods of linear regression. Moving on, the next topic that we have got is assumptions of the linear regression algorithm. See, when we are applying the linear regression algorithm, at that time, we have to ensure that the data set that we are using, it actually follows the assumptions of this linear regression algorithm. It is our responsibility to ensure that the data that we have follows the assumption made by this algorithm. If the data does not follow the assumption, then at that time there's a very high chance that my model would not work as per our expectation. Hence, it is our responsibility to ensure that it satisfies the assumptions. So the first assumption that is being made in case of linear regression algorithm is there is a linear relationship between features and the target. So here in my given data set, so let me just bring back our data set. In our given data set, the features are TV, radio, and newspaper, and the target is sales. So the first assumption is there is a linear relationship between them. So how do we check for linear relationship? Well, we can check for linear relationship by creating a pair plot. Okay, so I can create a pair plot which will be a scatter plot for my features and the target, which will help us to visualize whether we have the linear relationship between the feature and the target or not. So import cmos sns dot pair plot. Here df and x variables are TV, radio, newspaper. So I have mentioned my y as sales. Now if I create a plot, see, this is how the plot would look like. As you can clearly see, there is a kind of linear relationship between my TV and sales. Okay, and there is a loosely linear relationship between the radio and sales, and I would say that the between the newspaper and the sales, so there's not much of high a positive relationship or positive linear relationship between newspaper and sales. Okay, that is what that we can clearly observe in the scenario of this case here. In this case, that is the pair plot. Now this is a visual method. Now apart from that, if I want to go ahead and look into the numerical method, so we also have a Pearson correlation coefficient. So I can create a matrix like this. I'll say df.corr, which will help me to get the correlation coefficient between the variables. So here I'm interested in the sales column. So TV and sales are having the correlation coefficient of 0.78, radio it is 0.57, and newspaper you can clearly see it is very low, that is 0.22. Okay, so in this way we can visualize the data. Now another important assumption that my linear regression algorithm is going to make is there is actually a mean residuals. The mean residuals of my given data set is actually equal to 0. Okay, the mean residual is actually equal to 0. So this is another assumption of this linear regression algorithm. So let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and generate the prediction for this given data. So here we have the YPRED test. See, I have the YPRED test. Now, if I calculate the mean of this YPRED test, that is the difference between Y and YPRED test. So let me just calculate the residual. See, residual is given by, okay, Y test minus YPRED test. Okay, this will be the residual. If I now display the residual, this is the value of residual. Now, if I calculate the mean of this residual, see, I've got the value of mean of this residual is minus 0.075, which means it is closer to 0. So the mean residual in this case is closer to 0, and I can say that for this given data set, this clearly satisfies the assumption of this linear regression algorithm. Okay, and the other technique, other assumption that it makes is there is a normal distribution of error term. So we would assume that there is a normal distribution of error terms. So whenever we want to look into the distribution of any given data, we can easily make use of this plot to look into the overall distribution of this data set. So if I say residuals and plt.show, so this is how the plot would look like. Okay, so this is how the overall plot would look like. We can clearly observe that there is a normal distribution of the error terms. And another condition that we have got, or another condition or another assumption that we have got when we talk about this linear regression is multicollinearity. So here in the scenario of this multicollinearity, what happens is we will make use of the statistical term that is called as VIF score, or the variance inflation factor. Now, using this variance inflation factor, we would actually find whether there is any correlation between the features or not. See, we are okay to have a high positive correlation or high negative correlation between my feature and the target, but we do not expect the features to have the correlation between each other, and that is called as a multicollinearity. So whenever the data that we have got is having the multicollinearity, at that time the ability to generate the prediction is going to reduce. The reason because, just think about this with a very simple example. Let's say in your data set you have got height, weight and BMI. Now the expectation is, using this height and weight, you have to predict the BMI score. Now one thing that you would find is, okay, if the height increases, BMI is going to increase, weight increases, BMI is also going to increase. But there is a very high chance that if I increase the height, then the weight is also going to increase. In other words, if I'm analyzing the individual column, let's say height, and if I increase this column, even though I want it or not, this is having an effect on weight, which actually creates a confusion for the model as whether this change in BMI is due to height or whether it is due to height. So the predictive power of my linear regression algorithm is going to decrease whenever we have got the multicollinearity issues in the given data set. Now to check for the multicollinearity, we will make use of variance inflation factor. So in order to find this variance inflation factor, we make use of the library that is stats models. So I'm going to say from stats models dot stats dot outlier underscore influence, I'm going to import variance inflation factor. Okay, it says that there is no module found. So here to do the installation, so the command that I have to run is pip install stats models. So let me just include this command in my notebook. so that during the execution you can do the installation first. Okay, so this will take care of the necessary installation. Now once it's done, we'll just come down and we'll try to import the same variance inflation factor. Okay, so here once we have done the import, in order to calculate the variance inflation factor, we have to send in the data, and also we have to send in the column index for this variance inflation factor function. So in order to find the same, I'll start by defining my own custom function. I'll say def VIF score and I'll get the data that is X, and here whatever the data that I'm going to get, let's say I'll be sending the data which is in the pandas data frame format. So I'll extract it in the format of an array by getting the values attribute. Next, I'll calculate the VIF score as variance inflation factor. Here for this function, I'm going to specify X and Y, where X and Y are nothing but X is my array that we have got earlier. I'll say X array. Okay. And here for I in range, I'm going to say X dot shape number of columns in my data set. Okay. Now once this is done, I'm going to create a pandas data frame, pd dot data frame. Okay, I'll just mention it like this. Next, for this data frame, I'm going to add a column called score, which are nothing but my VIF underscore score. Then I'm going to add the column for my data set. So I'll say VIF score and I'll mention a new column called features. This is equal to X dot columns. Okay, then I'm going to return. So here VIF is equal to VIF. Okay, I'm going to return VIF underscore score. So in this way, I'm going to create a function. Now for this function, I'm going to send in my xtrain. I can send in my xtrain. This will help me to calculate the VIF score on my given data set. Okay, I have in the given example, I've actually sent in my xtrain, or instead of xtrain, you can also send the x as well. So if I send in my data set, this gives me the value of variance inflation factor. So the way that we interpret is, if I have a VIF score, okay, the general thumb rule, if I have the VIF score greater than 4, then that means there is a multicollinearity in a data set. So if the VIF score is less than 4, there is no multicollinearity in this given data set. Okay, so it's not so it is not zero multicollinearity, but if it is less than 4, I would say it is negligible or moderate multicollinearity in this given data set. So when we have multicollinearity in a data set, what we do is we are going to drop the column which has the highest multicollinearity value, that is VIF score, and we repeat the process of evaluation of this VIF score. Okay, so this was about the assumptions of linear regression algorithm and the regularization technique that will be applied on the linear regression algorithm. So from the examination perspective, you need to be remember about what is the overall assumption of this linear regression algorithm, the way in which the data will be fit for the given data set, that is between X and Y, and some of the assumptions and the way in which that we evaluate the linear regression algorithm. So team, with this we come to the end of this video. We'll continue further in the next video, where we will take a look into the another algorithm which comes under the classification, that's called as the logistic regression algorithm. So I'll see you next time. In this video, we are going to understand about another algorithm that is used in machine learning, that is logistic regression algorithm. So as we progress in this video, we will understand what exactly is this logistic regression algorithm and how is it actually different from linear regression algorithm. And we will learn in detail about the use case of this logistic regression algorithm and how the parameters are tuned in the scenario of this logistic regression algorithm. So let's get started. So let's start by understanding what exactly is this logistic regression algorithm. So when I talk about this logistic regression algorithm, and if you do a Google search, this is the definition that you would get when we talk about this logistic regression algorithm. So logistic regression is the appropriate regression analysis that we use it to conduct when the dependent variable is binary in nature. Now here they say that, like all the regression analysis, logistic regression is a predictive analysis, and this is used to describe the data and to explain the relationship between one dependent binary variable and one or more nominal, ordinal, interval or ratio level independent variables. So from this definition, I know a few terms might be very new to you if you're hearing for the first time, and few terms might be already you might be aware of. So one thing that you need to remember is, in the scenario of this logistic regression algorithm or the use case of this logistic regression algorithm, here whenever we are predicting a binary values, okay, whenever we are predicting the binary values of y, at that time we can make use of this logistic regression algorithm. So when we take up this logistic regression algorithm, it basically helps us to answer the questions which are like the yes or no based questions, like whether the person is going to survive in an accident or not, whether the student is going to clear in the examination or not, whether the person is going to pay his credit card bill or not. So to answer those kind of questions, we can generally make use of this logistic regression algorithm. Now, the question that most of the learners would have, and even that's one of the tricky question as well, why do we use this logistic regression rather than using the linear regression algorithm? Well, don't worry guys. Here, one of the problem that we have got with this linear regression algorithm that we have is that here in the scenario of this linear regression, the dependent variable, that is the value that we are trying to predict, is continuous in nature. Okay, that's one of the main feature of this linear regression algorithm which you are aware of. So here the value that we are predicting is continuous in nature. And another problem that we would face when we are working with this linear regression algorithm is that if I have any outlier in the data set, then the best fit line in the linear regression shift to fit that point as well. So these are some of the two things that you need to be aware of when we are talking about the linear regression. Now, if I make use of the linear regression algorithm to find the best fit, where I'm trying to minimize the distance between the predicted value and the actual value, let's assume that I want to apply it for the task of classification. Maybe I want to say that whether the person is suffering from a disease or not. So maybe I'll have along the x-axis, okay, I have the tumor size, and along the y-axis we have the two binary values, let's say yes or no. That means whether the cancer is malignant or benign. Okay, so this is what we have in our data set, and let us say that our data set contains the values in this way. Okay, I have some data points that would look like this. Now here in this case, okay, in this case, if I make use of the linear regression algorithm, which you are already aware of, at that time what I'll try to do is I'll try to draw a straight line which passes through most of the data points, isn't it? So I'll try to draw a straight line which passes through most of the data points, and in this case I might draw a straight line, like I might try out by drawing multiple straight line. So I'll try to find a straight line which passes through most of the data points. Now we can clearly observe that in this case, no matter how I draw this straight line, I cannot fit all the data points that I have in this sample space. The reason because I just have two values over here. These two values are actually the binary values that I have got, which we are trying to predict. So when we have this kind of data set, so the straight line will not be actually helpful for us. So what we would actually need is a kind of a line where there is a kind of a S-shaped curve in my data set so that I can fit all the data points. And that is where the logistic regression function comes into picture. See, when we make use of this logistic regression, it actually makes use of this logistic function, and this logistic function is going to squeeze the linear regression output such that it will range in the value between 0 to 1. Okay, that is the overall functionality of this logistic function. And mathematically, if you look at it, the logistic function is given by 1 over 1 plus e power minus of z, where z is equal to theta naught plus theta 1 x1 plus theta 2 x2 up to theta n xn. So I'm going to apply this logistic function on the linear regression term, which will help me to squeeze the values between 0 and 1. So that's the beauty of this logistic regression function. Now the best part is, so since I'm actually getting the values between 0 and 1, so what this would result is, this would result in an S-shaped curve like this. So this would result in an S-shaped curve that would look like this. Now with this S-shaped curve, I'll have the predicted values of y is equal to y 0 and 1. Okay, see, I now have the values between 0 and 1 with the values of x. So if I want to convert any values between 0 to 1 to either 0 or 1, I can make use of a threshold. Now with the help of this threshold, I can classify the data points as whether it belongs to class 1 or whether it belongs to class 0. So in this way, I can convert the continuous output from the linear regression equation into the values between 0 to 1, which will help us to perform the activity of binary classification. Okay, so this is the core idea behind this logistic regression function. So we now know as how does the logistic regression function would look like. See, logistic regression function is nothing but I'll be applying the logistic function on the regression terms. Now as an outcome, I'll be getting an S-shaped curve. Now, how does the system is going to find the best parameters for this logistic regression algorithm? Well, the system is going to find the best values of these parameters with the help of a technique that's called as a gradient descent technique. It's called as the gradient descent technique. Okay, team. So I'll stop the video over here. In the next video, let's talk about this gradient descent technique.
Hey guys, this is a video on Nvidia Certified Associate Generative AI LLMs live bootcamp session. So folks, this is a paid course that we have got with Manifold AI Learning. Now, this particular video takes you through the first class of this live bootcamp. Now, this first class is provided for free so that you can actually decide whether my way of teaching is of interest to you, is in alignment with your learning goals. Now, even though it's a free, I want to ensure that you get the maximum benefit of this video. So watch till the end, because in this video, we have actually covered the trustworthy AI, which covers actually 10% of the examination weightage. That means by watching this single video and by completing all the steps that is mentioned in this video, you'll be able to master the 10% for your examination in a very simple manner. We have tried to break down, and since it's a live boot camp, you might see me asking the questions. So ensure that you enjoy it, and whenever I ask the question, ensure that you post your answers in the comment section so that you'll have a live boot camp experience as well. So if you like my way of teaching, check out the link in the description and enroll with us. So enjoy the learning. I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, welcome back to your learning journey team. So team, welcome to this live bootcamp on Nvidia certified associate generative AI LLMs. That is, the examination code is NCA-GENL. So this is the certification bootcamp, and I welcome each of you on behalf of Manifold AI Learning to this live bootcamp, folks. So my name is Nachiket Murthy, and I'll be your instructor throughout this bootcamp. Let me be very honest with you. I appreciate each of you for joining in to this live bootcamp. Now, the folks who have joined with us today, that is as part of this bootcamp, I can say one thing. You guys are all committed. You want to you don't want to just learn something, you want to achieve it. So that's the reason that you're here. So thank you so much for trusting us, trusting Manifold AI Learning. And we are glad that we've got an opportunity serve you guys, and we'll do our best, provide you a better learning experience, and also ensure that you get all the tools, all the support that you need from us in clearing your NVIDIA certified associate generative AI LLM. Okay, guys. So I hope my voice is audible. So folks, can you just confirm whether you can hear my voice and see my screen too? So please let me know in the chat window. Okay, so let me start beginning this session with the general guidelines. Okay, let me just start defining some of the general guidelines that would help you to get the context. You might have observed by default, the learners are on mute. That means you're on mute by default. So in case as we progress in the session, okay, if you have got any question, please feel free to post it in the chat window. The reason that you are by mute by default is like, since it's a bootcamp, which is a certification bootcamp, I want to ensure that like every learner will be able to focus on the topics that we'll be covering. Now, that doesn't mean that I'll not be answering the questions. So I'll be taking your questions through the chat window. Now, in case if you want to speak and if it's something related to what we being covered and what if it feels like, okay, that is part of our curriculum, please don't hesitate. Raise your virtual Zoom hand. In case if you want to speak, I can unmute you as well. So my recommendation is like, let's avoid the discussion during the bootcamp learning session. So if it is out of topic, so that every learner can get the best or productive learning experience. Okay. If you've got any questions which is outside the context of our examination preparation, I'll be here on the same call. Once our scheduled time is over, I'll be here on the same call. We can further discuss. So is everyone okay with this guideline? So if you feel like we are okay, please confirm by typing in okay in the chat window. Okay, Chandrasekhar. Perfect. Lokesh, Sriram. Okay. Thank you, Rabi. Great. Okay. So thank you so much, team. Now let's have a look into some of the quick ground rules that you need to follow. Okay. So as we progress in the learning journey, you might observe we'll be focusing on the examination based topic. Now, in most of the cases, we'll be covering that depth in which, like, we'll be going into the depth that is as per the expectation of the examination. But we'll also ensure that we'll build the context so that you as a learner can get the necessary background about it. Now, in case if you want to deep dive or if you need more information, which is not part of our curriculum, and if you want to explore more, feel free to let me know. I'll do my best to provide all the reference resources which will help you maybe to explore further. And to ensure that even though it's a boot camp, we'll be covering the topics in a sequential manner, which means that you'll be progressing in a step-by-step approach so that you have a necessary background. You have you'll have an information as why we are doing, and then we'll learn what we are going to do. Okay, so that you as a learner will be able to progress in a step-by-step manner. So that's the overall ground rules of this bootcamp. Now, as I mentioned, feel free to let me know in the chat window, and I'll do my best to answer any of the queries that you might have while explaining the topic too. So now that this is clear, so let's start with very basics about it. So first of all, that's the what exactly is this examination? Okay. So Aziz says cannot hear you. Okay, just 1 second, guys. So Faizan, I see, have you logged in with two devices? I'm just curious. It shows you have logged in with two devices, but I mean, I'm seeing two links. Like just for the benefit, I'm sharing one link again over here in the chat window. Maybe you can just click on that link and try rejoining once. Just check once, Faizan, because others can hear. Maybe disconnect and see because others do not have the issue. I'll come back in case if you still need any help, Faizan. Okay, so let's have a look into this examination. So what exactly is this examination is all about? So this examination, the certificate level is an associate certificate level. So you can expect the questions of about easy to intermediate level. So if we compare it to other examination, we can say that easy to intermediate level examination or intermediate level questions that you can expect in this examination. And let's focus on the important key details, which is very important for you to observe. And this is essential for your efficient preparation as well. So first and foremost, observe the duration. The duration, it says just 1 hour. The reason that I'm calling it as just 1 hour, because if you take a look into the number of questions, the total number of questions that you're expected to answer in 60 minutes is actually 50 questions. That means you'll have little over 1 minute to answer each and every question. Okay, that's one key thing that we need to remember. And the overall subject that would be covered in this examination is generative AI and large language model. That's the, I'll say, broad way to describe the contents of this examination. And the price of this examination, if you like, when you register in the NVIDIA portal, it will be $135. Now, what does it mean for the examination preparation? So it means that one key thing that you need to remember when you're preparing for this examination is you have to answer as many questions as possible in short possible time. And this is especially helpful whenever you're trying to answer the direct ones. Like to give you an example, there will be a question that says as, what is tensor RT? Now, when the question is what is tensor RT, then if you are aware of the definition, then it is much easier for you to just go ahead and answer within just few seconds instead of just thinking or going through the questions over there. Okay, that's one of the key thing that you need to remember, guys. Okay, so just a second. Okay, so answer as many questions as possible in the short possible time, especially the direct ones. And as I mentioned, you have to be prepared on the easy and yet important topics so that you can increase the scoring. And also, please follow the instruction that I'll be giving you in each and every session so that you'll get the maximum benefit in the preparation. And there are some dry topics. So when I say dry topics, these are all the topics which are like the definition or knowing what. Okay. Now, even though it's boring, let me remind you, those are all the easy scoring ones. So ensure that you revise it daily. Now, the easy way to success is sharing your notes with each other. So I'm sure everyone have got the link to the WhatsApp group. So if you do not have the WhatsApp group, please don't worry. So I'll be sharing the link again. If any one of you have not joined, can join the WhatsApp group of this cohort so that you can use that WhatsApp group to get the batch updates and also share the notes with each other and compile it. So when 5 learners, like we've got around close to 10 learners here, I can see right now. So if each of you start preparing each notes and start compiling together, I'll say that is the amazing resource that you have with you already. Okay, so these are the ways in which that will increase your odds of success. And let me remind you guys, it's a very easy. Like if you follow this instruction, you can easily clear this NVIDIA certification examination. Now, let's have a look into the study guide and understand what are the core topics that is involved over here in this examination. Okay, so this is the study guide. So, and don't worry, I'll be sharing you this PPT as well. So all the resources that I'll be using in the class will also be made available to you in the learning portal. So this is the study guide, which has been released by NVIDIA. Now let's have a look into the study guide. Basically talks about each topic and its respective weightage. And they've also described the resources that you can refer additionally from the NVIDIA side. Okay. And there's a question over here from Sumita. The question is, Is there any negative marking? No, there's no negative marking. Okay, at least it's not covered in any of the documentation. So it is safe to assume that there's no negative marking. Okay, now here it talks about the overall weightage. Now the expectation, okay, like they are expecting that, like when you are working as a generative AI LLM associate developer, so if you understand what will be the responsibility, that will give you some more perspective as what are the contents that would be covered in the examination. So collaborate with AI development team to design code, test, debug, and document the programming application, perform some kind of a system analysis to ensure that system and software meets the required specification, aid in integrating the new AI models into existing system or creating new ones as required, assist in assessment and resolution of application and system performance issue, and stay and updated on new AI models and the developments that is happening in the large language model space, contribute to the production of technical documents and manual, conduct software programming, documentation development under the direction of senior staff, perform prompt engineering, assist in model selection, define, curate, label, and annotate the dataset for LLM, experiment with A/B testing, evaluating the prompts, evaluating the models, and producing proof of concept. So these are the job responsibilities of this AI developer, like what we can say, the AI large language model associate developer. So our learning journey and our preparation will be around these topics so that if you're someone who is working as a LLM associate developer, be able to work in an effective manner. So that's how the examination is designed, and that's how we'll be covering as we progress in the learning journey as well. Okay, they have defined some recommended qualification and experience. They say that, okay, knowledge of Python, C, and AI framework. But for the examination, so the questions are multiple choice in nature. So it can be single answer, multiple choice, or it can be multiple correct answer. Is a multiple choice question. So the two types of question that you would experience in this examination. And it will be the multiple choice only. You will not be expected to write something or run a particular lab over there. Okay, so that's the basic idea about this examination. Is everyone with me so far? So if yes, please hit thumbs up in the chat to confirm that you are with me. Okay, or you can type in okay as well. I don't think so that emoji is enabled. Okay, thank you, Mio. Okay, thank you, Davis. Okay, next question is, will they tell you how many answers will be selected? In some cases, yes. In some cases, they'll not tell. So if it is a multiple choice question, they'll say select the ones which are correct. Okay, they'll not say, in most of the time, they'll not say explicitly as two are correct or three are correct. They'll just say select the right answer. Okay, so perfect, guys. Thank you, Sumita. All right. So now that this is clear, let's have a look into the high level details about each and every domain or the topic that we have got. So if you have been following along like through the social media channels with Manifold AI Learning, I'm sure you might have seen this multiple times. So I'll just give a very quick overview. Okay. So here under this core machine learning and AI knowledge, the total weightage is 30%. Okay. So here, even though they call it as core machine learning and AI knowledge, this covers, I can say most of it. It covers machine learning, the intuition of machine learning algorithm, evaluation of machine learning algorithm, working with deep learning, evaluation of deep learning, the key idea behind it, and how to work with text data, some of the techniques that you will do in working with the text data. So those are the key topics that are part of this core machine learning and AI knowledge. So I can say this is more like a general understanding about machine learning, deep learning, and how the various tools would come together or various techniques will come together in order to help us in analyzing the data set. So that's the key idea of this core machine learning and AI knowledge. And it also considers some basic idea about large language models as well. In our learning journey too, we'll be covering such that we'll be first take up a concept of large language model. I'll give you a brief about what is large language model. We'll understand the same and the concept of machine learning, deep learning, and the ways in which we try to build the intuition behind this machine learning and deep learning algorithm. So I'll be providing you as we progress in the learning journey so that you'll have an intuition and you'll be able to confidently answer the questions whenever it appears in your examination. Okay, so this is about the core machine learning and AI knowledge. Next, moving on, data analysis. I can say this is one of the easy scoring module that we have got. That's the data analysis. So this involves inspecting, cleaning, transforming. What are the various ways in which we can analyze the data, and what are the metrics that we will be using it in order to just to check the validity of the data set. Okay, so this is about data analysis, and also one key aspect that we need to know is how NVIDIA Rapids Library can help us in performing the data analysis. This is we'll be having as we like we'll also have it as part of a learning journey, and we'll be progressing and we'll be learning as well. Then the third module is about experimentation. What are the ways in which we can experiment with various configuration of models? And we'll look into the ways in which we can fine tune the large language model, how we can compare the A/B testing, and how we can check how we can compare it, visualization techniques. Those are all the key concepts that are part of this experimentation. Here, we'll also talk about how we can compare the prompts as well. There are various techniques that we have got. We'll be learning as we progress in this experimentation topic. Then followed by software development, which has around 24% of weightage. So this involves a very high level. How does a RAG system is going? And you can say that the software development combines the concepts of what we have learned so far and just implementing it as a software. Here, it's also important that we understand some of the services and the tools that are available in NVIDIA as well. And we'll be looking at how those tools and services in the software development aspect and building the LLM as an application. Then lastly, we have a very small unit that is Trustworthy AI. So this involves describing the ethical principles of Trustworthy AI, what is Trustworthy AI, and how we can minimize the bias in AI system, and how to use this NVIDIA in improving the AI trustworthiness. Okay, so these are all the key topics that we have got inside this Trustworthy AI. All right, so now what are we going to do now? How are we going to target this learning? See, our intention, okay, our intention is to prepare in a most efficient manner, in a most effective way, so that you'll be confident right after this bootcamp, you should be confident in appearing for the examination. So how can we achieve it? Well, we'll be achieving it first by covering the easy topics and building the intuition and revising that topic daily. And then as we progress, we'll also learn and go deeper into the topic. So this will ensure that in the first few days, you will be covering most of the important concept or the intuition that you would require for the examination. You'll have most confidence from the syllabus, and then we will be mastering the lengthier or the more deeper concepts such as machine learning, deep learning, and building the intuition around it. Okay, so the first step that we are going to do is here in this, like here in this first step, so we are going to take up what we call it as the trustworthy AI topic. As I mentioned, it covers the 10% of the weightage. Okay, now we'll be covering this in the first session itself so that by the end of this session, you will be covering this 10% of what is required for this examination preparation itself. Okay, and then in the second part, I'll also talk about what are the key assignments that you have to do in order to ensure that you master this topic. And then we'll take up the next unit, that is the data analysis. That is how our first session, that is this session agenda would look like. So that's how we'll be progressing, guys. So is this plan okay? So if yes, please confirm by typing in as yes in the chat window. Okay. Okay. So thank you, team, for confirmation. Sumita, Davis, Mio, Sriram. Okay. So thank you so much, guys. So now that this is clear about our first step, what we are going to do. So when we talk about this trustworthy AI, so it's important that you should understand what is this AI, because some of you might have some knowledge about AI and some of you might be new to this term of AI. So let's take up a sequential approach and let's start by understanding what is AI, or we also call it as the artificial intelligence. Now, when we talk about this artificial intelligence, see, the artificial intelligence, it refers to simulation of human intelligence in machine, which are programmed to think and learn like humans. They are the type of system which is capable of ability to think and ability learn from the given data set. And the best part, and the one more key thing that you need to remember when we talk about this artificial intelligence system is it can also have the ability to take an action. To give you an example, we can think about Alexa as an example of artificial intelligence system. Here, when you provide an input to an Alexa, let's say you will ask your Alexa switch on the light or switch off the light. When you specify an input for your Alexa or your smart device that you have got, it is able to process the input that you would provide, and it is also able to take the action, which is nothing but maybe switching on the light or switching off the light. So that's what we call it as an artificial intelligence system, which is capable to analyze and take the action. Now, this action part, to take it, it will make use of, maybe it can make use of the software API in order to get it. Okay, to get it can make use of the software API to call the other services, or it can make, if it is a maybe a robot, maybe it can go ahead and make use of its mechanical movements in order to take that certain action. But the key idea is, think of this AI as a system which is capable of analysis, okay, and take an action. That is what an AI system is all about. Okay. Now, here when we talk about this AI system, they can perform the task that typically require human intelligence, like for example, recognizing the speech, understanding the natural language. Now, when I say natural language is a language that we humans speak. That's what we refer to as natural language, and making the decision and solving the problem. So these are the tasks that an AI system can do. Now, these days, you're learning one more term that's called as, or you're coming across one more term that's called as generative AI. Now, what is this generative AI then? So generative AI is a subset. Okay, it's a subset of AI. So if I say this is my AI, I'm calling this generative AI as a subset of this AI. What it does, it focuses on creating new original content. Now, how does it create? Well, this is going to create the new original content by learning the patterns and structures from the existing data. This is a kind of a special system where you will go ahead and provide the pattern. And using such pattern, it will learn the representation. And then using this knowledge, it will go ahead and generate the new output, which resemble or extend the training data. So that's one of the key thing about this generative AI. So here, some of the key things, the important thing that you need to remember, I'm sure you might have used in your day-to-day life of using this chat GPT or the Gemini or similar AI, generative AI. The idea is this generative AI has been like, will learn the patterns from the data set that we provide. Now, once it has learned the pattern, if I go ahead and ask in any input or ask any question, this would go ahead and generate the response. So this is the overall idea. When it is generating the response, it will generate the response based on the patterns it has learned from a very large data set. And that's what the generative AI is. Now, how does it work? Well, it's a three-step approach. If I want to just simplify it, it's a three-step approach. First step is called as training. Okay. Now, this is the first step that's called as a training. Now, in this first step, we are going to make use of a very large data set. We'll make use of a very large data set, and we are going to send that very large data set into the models that we have got. And we call these models as a deep learning neural network or similar kind of architecture. We'll use some models and we will provide this large data set as an input. And these models will try to learn the underlying patterns and the structures. Okay, I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say I would go ahead and provide, let's say, 10 different documents that I've got, or 10 different uh, corpus that I've got, maybe a paragraph. Now I'll provide the paragraph, 10 different paragraph about a certain topic. Maybe I'll give a topic on, let's say, diabetes. Okay, I'll provide 10 different paragraph about diabetes, and I'll provide it as an input for this model. Now, the idea is the model is going to learn from these 10 different paragraphs to understand what exactly is this diabetes is, and it will try to understand the patterns that will be part of diabetes. Okay, so what it will do is when we provide this data set, it will try to analyze the data, understand the relationship between them, and the nuances that we have within the data. And this process is called as learning. Okay, this process is called learning. Now, once the learning has happened, based on what they have learned, the models produce new content that is similar to the training data. Now, if what it means is if I ask that learned model, that is once the learning is completed, if I send the input for my learned or this trained model, this can generate a new content based on the pattern that it has recognized. Like for example, if I ask the trained model to describe diabetes, it will go ahead and describe the diabetes in a new way based on the pattern that it has learned. That means it's like it has prepared, and when you ask, it's like the examination, it will try to answer based on its preparation. So that is how these large language models is do. Now, because of this reason, the large language models, or like let me come back to the use the same term, that is a generative AI. Okay, so when I say large language model, so large language model is actually used in this generative AI. So we'll talk about this term at a later stage. So when I say large language model, this is the one that is powering this generative AI. So when we say large data set are fed into the model, since we are sending the large data set into the model and training it, we call this model as large language model. And we also use a certain technique as well. But the overall idea is LLM, or a large language model, is a trained model on a large data set. Now, because of its ability to generate the new content based on the data that it has seen, so this generative AI has variety of application. It's used in creative industries like generating art, music, writing, design. It's used in marketing and advertisement, like creating the personalized content, product description, and slogans. It's used in healthcare, that is in assisting with drug discovery, medical image analysis. It's used in software development, in especially in generating the code, providing the debugging assistance, and in the education domain, it's used in creating the personalized learning materials and tutoring. So this is all just a short list, I can say, but it can be used in every domain where we want to analyze the data and generate the new content based on the analysis that we have performed. Now, let's have a look into some of the popular example of these generative AI model. So if I want to define some of the popular examples of the generative AI model, I can say GPT-3 or GPT-4 or the latest version, any GPT. So it's one of the powerful language model which can generate the text in response to the prompt. Okay, that's one example of this generative AI model. And we have another popular example of generative AI model is DALL-E. So this is an image generation model which can create images from the textual description. Now, another example is Stable Diffusion. This is another image generation model known for its versatility and high quality output. So one thing is common across all these examples that you see right here is generation of the new content is common. So all these generative AI models that we have got, so it takes in the input or prompt. Okay, in most of the cases, it's actually text as an input, which we call it as prompt. And by considering or by taking this input, this would go ahead and generate the output. So when it is generating the output as per the data that I have provided. That's the overall idea about working with this generative AI models. Now, to get a complete foundation about this generative AI model, let's have a quick demo of this generative AI. And while having the demo, I'll explain some of the important terms that you need. Okay, so let's take up an OpenAI as one of the generative AI model. So I'll launch this ChatGPT. Okay, so I have launched a ChatGPT over here. Now, let's go ahead and experiment with ChatGPT, and I'll explain some of the intuition behind what is happening right now. First of all, when we open the ChatGPT, here, if I expand this ChatGPT, here it says ChatGPT for everyday task. So, like what it means is whenever we select this ChatGPT in the backend, this basic version of ChatGPT has a model that is associated with it in the backend. And that model is the one that is going to help us in generating the response. So here we can call this ChatGPT that we have got as an application. And the model that is powering this ChatGPT application is a GPT model. Okay, the GPT is one of the type of a model that we have got. This is one of the model that is powering this ChatGPT application. Now let us understand what happens if I send in any input. Here it says message GPT, and I'm going to say explain generative AI. Now, when I ask a question as explain generative AI, so what system is doing is here in this case that ChatGPT is generating the response based on the input that I have specified. Okay, it is explaining for me directly. It describes about what is generative AI, the key concepts about this generative AI, the training data, applications. It's providing the complete details about what I have asked about the topic, that is the generative AI. Now, this input that I have just provided for this ChatGPT, we call it as prompt. So prompt is the instruction that we provide for the large language models. This model GPT is called as a LLM or a large language model. The input that we send to this large language model or this generative AI application is called as a prompt. Now, here, when I have mentioned as explain generative AI, it has generated the response in this manner. Now, observe closely and try to make out what would happen when I mention the input in a certain way. So I'm going to mention a few more details. So explain generative AI to a small kid who is 5 years old. Now, this time I have added some more information. Now, I have added the information by providing some context over here. I've mentioned as explain what is generative AI, just like you would explain to a small kid who is 5 years old. Now, when I've provided this context about explain generative AI to a 5-year-old kid, now if you look at the response, it has changed. Here it says, sure. Imagine you have a magic box that can make new things just by learning from the stuff you already have. So here's how it would work. The magic box looks at the many pictures of your favorite things like animals, toys, or even drawings. And after it learns, you can ask the magic box to make a picture or stories. It can make the picture of a funny looking animal or a bedtime story just for you. So you can clearly understand they have explained this generative AI from the context that we have mentioned. Now let me try out one more thing. I'm going to say explain generative AI in, let's say, in 20 words. Okay, I'll just see. explain generative AI in 20 words. So when I ask this question as explain generative AI in 20 words, see, now the response from this large language model, that is a chat GPT, it has ensured that it is explaining the term of generative AI within 20 words. So what does it mean? And what is the key thing that you need to remember from this experimentation that we have just performed? The response from this generative AI is dependent on the prompt that we specify to this large language model, that is this generative AI. So depending on my prompt, the output is getting modified. If I provide more context, it will help me to generate the response which is in coherence, that is in alignment with what I mentioned in the context. And I can also provide additional information, let's say instruction as well, by providing some more information as explain it in 20 words. Or I can ask some few more things as well, like for example, translate the below to French. So I can go ahead and provide the commands, and based on the command or the instruction that we provide, the output of this large language model, we can see right here as per the commands that we specify. So the key observation that you need to know right now, okay? The LLM is called as a large language model. Now this is powering the generative AI. ChatGPT is a generative AI application, which is powered by the large language model that's called as a GPT family. Now, the input that you specify to this LLM is called as a prompt. It's a set of instructions that we provide to this large language model so that we can get the response as per our expectation. Now, if we provide more context, if we modify this prompt, we can actually control how the output will be. And we have seen it in an example in our case as well. When I just mentioned general way about explain generative AI, we get the general definition. Now, when I ask with a context that says explain generative AI to a small kid who is 5 years old, so it considers this context and it is generating the response. Now, if you take a look at it, I've provided one more prompt which says as, hey, this is what you have to do, like maybe explain generative AI in 20 words. It generated in 20 words. So the key thing that you need to remember from the examination is what is prompt and why this prompt is very important. The key thing that why this prompt is very important, because using this prompt, we can actually control how the output from my model will be. So that's the core idea of this working with generative AI and basic of this prompt, okay, which is nothing but the input that we have got. Okay, so it can take the inputs in the format of text. And these days, okay, we have the models which can actually take in the image as well. Okay, we have the GPT and even the BERT. So they can also Gemini model that we have got from Google. So this can also take, okay, this can also take the input, which is in the format of the image as well, which is non-text in. Okay, so that's one more key thing that you need to remember when we are working. Okay, and yeah, the response from the generative AI model is based on the context, that the way in which that we have provided from the prompt. And for some, okay, now let's experiment one more thing. Okay, I'm going to ask about, let's say, who won recent cricket World Cup. So when I ask this question as who won recent cricket World Cup, so what it did is it browsed the web, okay, and it is generating the response. If you have observed earlier, when I asked the question as what is generative AI, it just generated the output from whatever the memory that it had. But now, when I ask the question, let's say, who won the recent Cricket World Cup, it performed the web search. Now, what does it actually represent? It actually reinforces about what we have talked about it earlier. So the way this generative AI has been built is, it has been built based on the training data. It has been built based on the training data. So we have performed the training on a very large data set. Now, once we have performed the training on this very large data set, so whenever we try to ask the question to our model, let's say, what is generative AI? So since that is part of the memory, so it went ahead and generated the response for us. Okay, based on what it has learned, it was able to generate the response for me. Now, when I asked one more question that said as, who won the recent cricket World Cup? Now, because that information was not available in that training data set, so since ChatGPT is an application which has been built on top of this large language model, so they have built the additional capability which will search the web and generated the response for us. So let me remind you this ability of searching, okay? This ability of searching the web and generating the response is part of the ChatGPT application. It's not part of our large language model or the GPT model that we have got. The GPT model or this generative AI model that we have, it can take the input, which is a prompt, and generate the response. Okay, so these are the key learnings that we had about this generative AI and basics of it. Okay, team. So let's have a quick check-in. So is the pace is okay? Are you able to follow along with me so far, guys? So we have just learned one of the important topic, basics of it, that is generative AI and the prompt. So if you're clear so far, please confirm by typing in as all good in the chat window. Okay, thank you, Mew. Thank you, Davis. Thank you, Faizan. Thank you, Sumita. Great. Okay. So thank you, team, for confirming. Now, based on the learning that we just had, so let's have a quick knowledge check. So first question. So what is the most accurate definition of this generative AI? So go through this option and let me know what is the correct answer. Option A, AI that can understand and respond to human language. AI that can analyze the large data set and extract insights. AI that can create original content like text, images, or music. AI that can make decision based on predefined rules. So what do you think is the right answer when we talk about generative AI? So there's only one right answer for this. So if you have to choose one, which one would you choose, team? Okay, Mew, Davis, Chandrasekhar, Sumita, Ravi. How about others? What do you think? Yes, that's correct. As most of you have answered, the correct answer is C. It's the AI is a system which can generate the original content like text, images, or music. Now the next one. Okay, so what is prompt in the context of prompt engineering? So what is prompt, guys? It's a command to start the AI model, a set of instruction or input that guides the AI's output. It's a way to measure the AI's performance. Option D, technique for training the AI model. Okay, so I see most of the answers right here as B. Okay, that's correct, folks. Perfect. The correct answer is B. It's a set of instruction or the input that guides the AI's output. Now, why did we learn this basics of generative AI? The reason that we have learned this because, as I described at the start of this section, we are going to focus on one of the unit that we have got, which is an easy to score unit that's called as a trustworthy AI. Okay, so the trustworthy AI is the concept or the uh, unit that we are going to touch right now from the examination standpoint. So folks, so can we proceed? So if yes, please confirm yes in the chat window. So we'll get started with this new unit from our examination standpoint, that is trustworthy AI. Okay, Chandrasekhar, David, Sumita. So excellent, guys. So thank you so much for being so interactive. So I require your support going further as well, so that I'll do my best to give you a best learning experience and the best way that we can help you in your certification journey. So as always, feel free to share your feedback, or if you've got any question, let me know in the chat window. I'm open to feedback. All right. So let's begin with this concept of trustworthy AI. So when we talk about this trustworthy AI, So far, you have experienced the generative AI. So far, you have now experienced this generative AI. You have fully seen what this generative AI can do. Like we can provide input on anything. Like even if you look into the example that I just did, so I asked one thing about, let's say, science, like data science. That is, I've asked it to explain what is generative AI. On the other hand, I've asked it about explain generative AI on the specific topic, and then I was able to ask something related to cricket. So this chat GPT or this large language model, it has got a lot of capabilities. Means when these large language models are so powerful, which is able to answer most of the queries that we have got, what it means most number of people will be start using it. Now most people will start using it, and because of that, it starts becoming an integral to the decision making in various sector. Like even we are seeing some of the products are coming up with built-in large language models. So whether it is Apple or any other devices, so like they'll provide, like when you they'll provide the built-in access to such like generative AI itself. That means when these systems are becoming so powerful, so it starts becoming one of the integral component when it comes to decision making in various sectors. It can be as simple as when you have a bad experience with, let's say, when you ordered a food from a website like a Swiggy or food delivery partner like a Food Panda or Uber Eats. So if you have got a bad food experience and when you try to reach out to the chatbot, now if that company starts using the chatbot which is powered by LLM, then that chatbot is the one which is going to decide whether you will get a refund or not. That's the level of impact that we would have in our day-to-day life. Now, that's an example in food delivery. The same thing can happen in travel, and the same thing can happen in various sectors that we are currently using it right now. Now, when these models are actually prepared, it brings to the first question, how these models are prepared. These models are prepared based on the training data that we have sent. Now, think of it in this way. Let's say you have prepared the training data, and in this training data, maybe you have collected the training data from, let's say, from an history data, okay? Like maybe an historic data that you have collected. Maybe it has got the information about how the civilization is or how the people are living, and you have got that information 10 years back. Maybe I'm just giving an example, okay? It might not be a true. Maybe 10 years back, one of the ethnicity people might be associated with a certain profession, okay, or one of the group of people might be associated with certain profession 10 years back. Now when you feed such information to the large language model as part of the training data, now when you're generating the output from such model, that model will have its own bias saying that if a person belongs to this ethnicity, this is what his features will be, or this is what his profession will be, this is how his knowledge level will be. Now that's going to affect that's going to affect a lot for the customer, as well as it will have a significant consequences as the end users. Now this is called as bias. So when the training data that we are preparing, if it is historic or when it is not prepared correctly, it can lead to potential for harm, which can result in bias, errors, or even misuse of AI can happen, and which can lead to significant consequences. Hence, whenever we build a system which is powered by generative AI, it's very important that we have or we practice the trustworthy AI, because this is important for people to trust this artificial intelligence so that we can adapt it and we can have a wide societal acceptance. And that is one of the reasons the trustworthy AI is important. So when we talk about building an AI which is trustworthy, there are four pillars of this trustworthy AI. Call it as fairness, transparency, accountability, robustness, and privacy. Okay, so these are five pillars. These are the five pillars of this trustworthy AI. Now, what is fairness? Now, whenever we are building any AI system, it should avoid bias. It should avoid discrimination based on sensitive attributes like race, gender, or age. And the key thing, or one of the key pillar of this trustworthy AI is transparency. It's okay, the users might not be able to understand completely, but a trustworthy AI means at least at a very high level, the user should be able to understand how this AI system is actually generating a certain decision. That's very important that you need to know. And another key thing is accountability. There should be clear responsibility for the action and the outcomes of such AI system. And more importantly, robustness. So these AI system should be reliable, it should be resistant to errors, and it should be secure against the attacks. And lastly, the privacy. The AI protect the user data and respect the individual privacy rights. So we call these five things are the key pillars of building the trustworthy AI. So let's have a look at it one by one, starting with the fairness in AI. So we say fairness in AI, we have understood that the AI should be free from bias. To ensure that we incorporate the fairness in AI, some of the common practices that we follow are will identify and mitigate the bias. That means whenever we are preparing the data set for training our model, in such scenario, we always analyze such training data and we'll also look into the model outputs as well. When we send in some of the test data, we'll try to understand, are we seeing any pattern in the model output as well? Even though it might not be part of our training data set, maybe it has learned during the training. So we want to analyze the model output as well. And more importantly, we also need to have a feedback loop. Now, if we feel like when we build a generative AI application, it can be used by our employees as well as the end customers. There should be a way to specify the feedback that will be able to incorporate it and analyze the feedback and build a system which is fair to you. Now, under this fairness, diverse teams. It's very important that whenever you are building any AI system, so it should include diverse perspective. Now, this can be done by utilizing as much amount of diverseness that we have got in the training data set. Okay, that is what it means by diverse teams. And lastly, fairness audit. It's very important that we regularly assess these AI system for fairness and adjust it as required. This takes care of the fairness in AI system. Then we have something called as transparency. So when we talk about transparency, one of the important term that we will generally come across, it's called as XAI, which is also known as explainable AI. It's very important that we develop the methods for explaining the AI decision in an understandable term as much as possible. Depending on the experimentation that has been conducted, it's very important that we create such document which describes about the system design, the data resources, and the limitation, and how these AI decisions are being made that will enable the transparency in the AI system. And the design of such interfaces enable the users to understand and interact with the AI system in a much user-friendly manner. The key thing from the examination is the term of this XAI, which is nothing but the explainable AI. This is one of the common terms that you will see in some of the questions, especially on this topic of this trustworthy AI. Then we have something called as accountability. So accountability means who should be responsible, who is accountable, who is responsible for the AI system's action and the outcome. It's very important that we establish this whenever we are building an AI system. And it's also important that we assess the potential risk and the benefits of AI system before we actually deploy it. And lastly, the redressal mechanism. There should be a proper way or proper channel for the users to report issues or seek remedies whenever an AI caused any harm. So this comes under the accountability aspect. Then the robustness. Now, when we say robustness in AI, so robustness involves testing the AI system in various ways so that in all the condition, the AI is working, or this artificial intelligence system or generative AI system is working as per our requirement. And by conducting such thorough testing, we will be able to identify the vulnerabilities that we have in the system, and we can address it during the testing itself. This will ensure that the AI product that we are going to deploy, so that will be robust, and it will not be affected by the vulnerabilities, or it will not be affected by the hackers or other groups. And more importantly, yes, the second one comes over here: protect the AI system from cyber attacks and unauthorized access. So this comes under this security measure. And lastly, it's always important that we monitor the AI performance in real world settings and update as required. Here, we can make use of various continuous monitoring tools that we have got in the market. So it's not part of the curriculum, but I just want to share you some details. There are various AI observability platform. Like, to name a few, I think Y Labs is a well-known platform. You can use that Y Labs in your production environment and monitor such large language models. And the next one is a privacy in AI. To collect only the necessary data and make anonymize or perform the anonymization or pseudonymize it wherever it is possible. And here in this case, since the data is the one that is going to power this large language models, it's also important that you implement robust security measure so that you can protect the user data. And whenever any user data is being used, there's a proper consent from the users for data collection and the data usage. These are the key pillars of building a trustworthy AI. Recap: we talk about the pillars of AI. It involves fairness, transparency, accountability, robustness, and privacy. So these are the key terms that you need to remember whenever we are thinking about building a trustworthy AI. You can expect the questions related to the definition or what does it mean, or just a general ideology base. So if we are thinking about building a trustworthy AI, ensures that we have got the fairness. So the concepts that we have seen in the fairness in AI, so if you have gone through it, so it will be easier for you to answer those questions. Okay, so this is about the trustworthy AI. Now, the next topic that we have got is how we can minimize the bias in AI system. Now, before we continuing further, so we have reached a 1 hour point, guys. So we'll take a short break. Now, before we go for a short break, so I'll, I'll take a pause here. So folks, do you have any questions or any queries from the topics that we have covered so far? So if you're clear, please confirm by typing in as all good. Or if you have got any question, so please let me know in the chat window. So I see a question right here. So one question is how we can prevent the user from entering the personal data. So here, there's no way which is built in into the LLM. So some of the common practice that we would use it in the production environment is we are going to write our own custom logic. Now, this custom logic, depending on the scenario, it can be based on maybe regular expression, or we can just go ahead and make use of another very small model, like language model, to check whether we have any personal information and make use of the named entity recognition over there. And using the named entity recognizer, we can write a custom rule that says, please do not enter the personal information. So that is the way that we can handle it. Okay, it is something that we have to build the custom logic. Okay, thank you, Mew. Thank you, Davis. Thank you, Chandrasekhar. Thank you, Faizan. Thank you, Sumita. Okay, perfect, guys. So let's do one thing. So let's meet after 7 minutes, and then we'll continue with our discussion, and we'll understand one of the key topic in preparation, that is how we can minimize the bias in AI system. Okay, team. So let's do one thing before we proceed ahead with this new topic of how to minimize bias in the AI system. So I see all the learners have joined. So I'll just share a few things, guys. Okay, let me just share the WhatsApp group link, which I've got from the admin team. Give me a second. For those of you who have not joined, so please go ahead and join the same. Okay, team. So I've shared you the WhatsApp link, a WhatsApp group link. Please go ahead and join the same in case if you have not been able to join so far. Okay, and I'll also share the details about the cohort manager who will be your single point of contact for all the questions related to your queries, access, or anything. So he'll be your first point of contact in accessing in the portal. So let me just share the details as well. It might have you might have already seen in the welcome email, but just for the reference, I'm sharing it again, folks. So yeah, so I'm just copy pasting the message that was there in that email. So his name is Sridhar. Okay, you can reach out to him on the number that I have mentioned in the chat window. So that's his phone number. You can reach out to him directly over the WhatsApp. He can assist with the queries for any of the queries that you might have. Okay. So just a quick one confirmation, folks. So have you joined the WhatsApp group? Just quick confirmation. Please confirm by typing in as yes if you have joined. Great. Perfect. Okay. And let me tell you guys, even I'm also there in that WhatsApp group. In case if you have got any question, you can also, I'll ping you I'll just send hi over there so that you'll know my phone number over there. You can also like text me in the WhatsApp too. Okay. I'll be reachable. You can expect a delay in case if I'm at work or working on other things, but I'll do my best to respond to you folks. Okay. Next thing that I want to ensure is the LMS access. Okay, let me just share you some quick details as how you can access the session's recording and how you can join the live session. Okay, so first thing is the portal for accessing the live session is the website live.manifoldailearning.in. So once you go to this page, this is how the homepage would look like currently. So I'm sharing the link. So here, go ahead and sign in with your email, like with the email address that you have used it for signing in. Okay, I'll just use one of the example account. I'll just log in and show you. So one of the key thing is if you're signing up for the first time or if you have received the email, the password is password only. Okay, like just everything in small case, it is password. Okay, just for the example, that would be the default password. Ensure that you change it once you log in. Okay, if you're logging in for the first time. Now, once you have logged in, you'll be able to see something like this. Here it says your name and it will give you the message which says as welcome to Manifold AI Learning. And you can check your courses under the My Enrollment. Okay, if you have registered for more than one cohort, you'll be able to access it. If you click on My Enrollments, you'll be able to see the courses that you have the access to. The current course that you're in is the cohort 3 Nvidia Generative AI LLMs. You can click on that course so that you can access the complete session details as well as the contents that you want to access. Okay, so here, like you can get the live access link over here from this portal itself. If you click on this join now, so this is going to join over here. Okay, this is going to join the live session, like the live session that we are in. So you can access the live session directly from the portal. Now, once the session is completed, so within 24 hours, okay, so I'll say not 24 hours, within 3 to 4 hours, the session's recording will be processed and it will be updated automatically. So first it will download, first we will wait for Zoom to process and then some encoding would happen before it appears to you. So normally it will take 3 to 4 hours. So it will be automatically updated in your portal. And few things that I want to highlight, you will have a lifetime access to the sessions recording, including the quizzes that we'll be creating, the assignments, like even the code. So every resource that is provided in the learning journey, you will have a lifetime access. And you'll also have the access to the course slides as well. Yeah, that's correct, Faizan. You'll have the access to the core slides, which you can use it for your examination preparation or learning. Okay. Now, I just need a quick confirmation, folks. Is everyone is able to log into this live.manifoldailearning.in? Can you please confirm? So if you have got any questions, yeah, like issues, please let me know. I'll put in a word with the support team or with your email ID so that they can resolve it at the earliest. Because most of you might should be already having the access, but if you still have the issues, please don't hesitate to let me know. Or you can also reach out to Sridhar directly. Okay, thank you, Sumita, Mio, Faizan, Ravi, Chandrasekhar, Davis. Okay, perfect. Thank you, team, for confirmation. So now that the basics are clear, how you can access the learning resources. So let's come back to our lesson that we have got. Okay, so the next topic that we have got is how can we minimize the bias in AI system? And this is also one of the key topic that is mentioned in the NVIDIA study guide as well. So let's have a look into the ways in which that we can minimize the biasness in the AI system. Now, here we have already learned about what is bias and how it will impact the trustworthiness of an AI system. So it's important that we minimize the bias as much as possible. So in order to minimize the bias, so always have the diverse and the representative data collection. So ensure that you collect the data that represents all the relevant subgroups so that this can avoid the underrepresentation of any. Now, as I mentioned, we will also have to consider some of the other aspects as well when we are having the diverse representation. That data that we have got right now, it should be in sync with the societal norms that we have got. Okay, that's one of the key things that you need to remember, especially when you're using the historical data. Ensure that you consider these aspects as well when you're, even though when you're considering the diversity, because we want the AI or the generative AI application to be valid for the current society, not in the 10 years ago. Okay, that's one key thing. Okay, next is the balanced data. So ensure that you balance the data set to avoid the overrepresentation of certain group. Now, this can skew the model's outcome. So this is very much similar to the example that I gave at the start. If you have any underrepresentations of certain groups in a given data set, then some group will have an advantage when it is being implemented. They will have a favorable outcome compared to the other group. So in order to avoid it, to ensure that we have a balanced data. Next, pre-processing the data set. So biasness can occur when we have an incorrect data or the data which has got lot of, I'll say, like a lot of incorrect values. Okay, especially when we have an incorrect value, even such incorrect value can also introduce the biasness in the large language model. So ensure that that you take care of the data cleaning activity. So we'll also revisit in future as well about the data cleaning. But the key intention is we'll perform the cleaning so that we can remove or correct the biased data entries. And the another key step in data pre-processing data is anonymization. It's very important that we take the necessary step during the data preparation itself to remove the sensitive attributes which are not essential for the model so that we can prevent them from influencing the outcome. Then bias detection and mitigation technique. So here, in order to detect the biases, so one of the commonly used statistical tests is disparate impact analysis. So you can remember this term that's called as disparate impact analysis. So it is recommended that you use the statistical test to detect such biases in the data as well as in the model output. And we'll have to come up with a fairness metric. So we have to implement the fairness metrics like demographic parity, equal opportunity, and disparate impact in order to assess and mitigate the bias. So these are the things that we ensure that we'll be able to measure the fairness and the data that we have got is well represented. And whenever we are applying the algorithm, okay, wherever possible, okay. It's important that we ensure the fair treatment to the different group. Like this can be like this not specific to the large language model, but you can think about from the machine learning or a general standpoint. So some of the algorithms, okay. So we'll discuss more about machine learning, but if I want to highlight right now, some of the algorithms has the ability to accept the class representation that we have got in the data set. Now, when and where possible, if it is available, it is important that we specify those details in that algorithm so that we'll be having the fair treatment of various groups and reweightage. So it is recommended that we adjust the weights of different samples so that we can balance the influence of various groups during the model training. So even this is also part of our, I'll say, parameters of our machine learning model. The other ways we can minimize the bias is model training. So by introducing the regularization techniques or by applying the adversarial training. So regularization technique is we use it when we want to prevent the overfit to bias data patterns. So overfit is a scenario where the model learns like the model will memorize the data set instead of learning the pattern behind it. Now, if the model learns the data set itself, this can lead to biasness. And if the data set also has a bias, then that's one more challenge because first of all, the model is memorizing. And if the data is biased, then this will lead to further problems whenever the model is generating the output. Hence, regularization is actually recommended. Okay, regularization means we have various techniques like we have L1, L2, L1, L2, and like that we have various regularizations. It is important that we apply such techniques. So for now, remember that using this regularization technique, it can help us to avoid the overfitting. That is modelless learning too much about our training data. And another technique is adversarial training. So in order to promote the robustness and the fairness, it is recommended to train the model with adversarial technique. Adversarial technique is uh, train train it in a train it such a way that you will have one more agent which is going to achieve the opposite of what my model is actually like trying to do. So that's called as a adversarial training. It's like the opposite. So that like if the model is trying to succeed, they are going to send one more technique. It can be a model which is training in together. Now that intention of the other model is to make the other one fail. Okay, so that it will work in competition and we'll be able to get the overall better outcome. So that's called as an adversarial training. Now, once the model has been trained, it's also important that we need to perform the post processing. Like, for example, once we have processed the data, whatever the output that is being generated. So, if we have any biases, we should correct such identified biases. And if we observe that the data that we have got is underrepresented by looking at the model output, so we should be able to take the action so that we'll be able to have an equitable and a fair representation of the data across different groups. Okay, so this is about the post processing. Now, moving on, apart from that, it doesn't end there. So we'll also have to take care of the ongoing monitoring and the evaluation because it doesn't stop just because our model is in production environment and it is getting the input from the user. So we have to perform the continuous monitoring. We'll have to regularly monitor the model's performance in terms of complexity, how much time it is taking, and how the responses of the model are. And it is also important that we also monitor the inputs to the model. Excuse me. So we also consider the inputs to the model as well. So that will help us to understand what kind of inputs are we getting it for the model, so that if we observe that the model is not responding correctly for one of the input, we can use it as part of our training data set in future and improve the further training. And the other aspect is the feedback. It is important that we implement a feedback mechanism so that if a new data is identified or if a new data is comes in, we'll be continuously improving the model. Lastly, one of the key thing is the transparency and accountability. So it's part of the trustworthy AI as well. So it's explainability. So wherever possible, it is recommended that we use the explainable AI technique so that we can understand how the model makes a decision and identify the potential biases. At audit trial, it's important and it's recommended that you maintain the audit trial for model decision and the changes so that you can track the bias issues and you can actually address them. So to summarize on this topic of trustworthy AI, so trustworthy AI is essential for responsible and ethical AI development. The pillars are fairness, transparency, accountability, robustness, and privacy. They are actually crucial. And building such trustworthy AI, okay, building such trustworthy AI, it's not a single time activity. It's a continuous effort or continuous process, which requires the continuous effort and constant improvement. So that's the key summary of this trustworthy AI. Now, even though we have covered it from the topic wise, there's one missing aspect of it. That is, how does NVIDIA services will help in building such trustworthy AI? So this topic or this section is very important, guys. So you'll, in most of the sections in your NVIDIA examination, there are mostly two kinds of categories, I'll call it. So first category is general understanding of AI and the machine learning system and the large language models. And second category, which is an easy scoring category, which is how NVIDIA services are helping us to achieve such like requirement. Now, in this case, how NVIDIA services are helping us in building the trustworthy AI. So this is one of the important section. So let's have a look into the key NVIDIA services that we have got for building this trustworthy AI. Okay, so first thing that we have got is NVIDIA AI Enterprise. So when we say NVIDIA AI Enterprise, NVIDIA AI Enterprise is a comprehensive suite of AI and data analytics software, and this is optimized for the NVIDIA EGX platform. And this will actually provide the tools and frameworks which is required to build, deploy, and manage the AI application across the various industries. Okay. And this is the idea about this NVIDIA Enterprise. So you need to know from the examination, whenever I show you these services, you need to know what it would mean and what is the special feature of it. It's a comprehensive suite of AI and data analytics software. And this is optimized for which platform? NVIDIA EGX platform. Just a very high level. Like you should be able to recognize it. You don't have to memorize it. You should be able to recognize it because it's like the recognition from the four option. You should be able to recognize it. So that's the level you should be preparing, guys. The other service that we have got is NVIDIA Clara. So this is a healthcare specific AI and healthcare like HPC application framework, we call it. So like if you're dealing with an healthcare, then then you can actually refer to this NVIDIA Clara. So this offers the tools for building the secure and reliable AI models for medical imaging, genomics, and smart hospitals. And there's something called as NVIDIA Metropolis. So NVIDIA Metropolis is an intelligent video analytics platform, and this supports the development of AI application for public safety, traffic management, city services, while ensuring the data privacy and security. Apart from that, we have NVIDIA Drive. It's a autonomous vehicle platform which includes the hardware and software solution for developing the self-driving car. So this actually emphasizes on safety, reliability, and real-time processing in order to ensure the trustworthy autonomous driving system. And we have NVIDIA Jarvis. So it's a framework for building and deploying the conversational AI application. And now this ensures that the AI driven interactions that would happen with Jarvis are secure, reliable, and accurate. So these are all the key services that we have got for building the trustworthy AI from NVIDIA. Now, apart from these, we also have various tools and framework as well. Some of the important tools under this trustworthy AI is NVIDIA Triton Inference Server. Now, this is one of the important tools or a framework, I'll say, because you will see me talking about it in various units and describing its various application. Like this Triton server is going to simplify the deployment of AI models at scale. So the best part is it supports various framework. This provides a consistent production environment that will always ensure that the model performs in a reliable manner. Remember, reliability is one of the key aspects of trustworthy AI. And we have NVIDIA Tensor RT. So this is a deep learning inference optimizer and a runtime library. So this ensures the high performance and low latency for AI model, which is critical for real-time application. Okay, it's a high performance and low latency. This will always ensure it. So it's a runtime library. That's something that you need to remember. And there's something called as NVIDIA NGC. The NVIDIA NGC is a hub for GPU optimized AI software. This will include the pre-trained model, model script, and industry-specific AI solution. So this NVIDIA NGC facilitates the development and deployment of AI application with built-in security and performance optimization. So these are all the key things, aspects under this tools and framework. If you take a look into the security measure, so NVIDIA GPUs and hardware solution, this is just a very high level. So for completion, I've added it. So some of the general things that is followed in the NVIDIA GPUs and hardware solutions are encryption, secure boot, and hardware-based isolation. And coming to the data privacy, so NVIDIA ensures that the AI solutions comply with data privacy regulation like GDPR and CCPA, and it provides the various tools for anonymizing and securing the sensitive data, which is used in AI training and inference. All right, so we have completed some of the key learnings which are relevant for this trustworthy AI, which covers 10% of the weightage of the examination. Now, this doesn't end here. There are some important resources that I have shared. Now, based on this, there's also an assignment as well. First, let's take a look into this key resources. There are key important resources which are very much essential for you to know, just to know at a very high level from the examination standpoint. Now, let me just take you through one by one. First one is the technical blog. So NVIDIA has published various blogs. And since we are in the trustworthy AI, these are all the blogs under this topic of trustworthy AI. It's worth going through each of these blogs at a very high level. Like, for example, here it says advancing the production AI with NVIDIA AI Enterprise. So I've just talked about the NVIDIA Enterprise over there in the earlier slide. And you can see there's a blog that is written, which has been published this year. So the expectation is go through it and try to build some more perspective about what exactly is this AI enterprise and how it is actually helping us. Okay, even they have also talked about the Triton server. They have explained how exactly it can be used. You don't have to go inside the technical details, but having a high level understanding will be very much helpful for you in answering these easy questions. So I'll call these questions as the easy type questions. Then, okay, so check out these blogs. Then I've also mentioned few blogs as well. So one blog that I've recommended is securing the LLM system against the prompt injection. So prompt injection is actually one of the new attack technique or one of the attack technique which is specific to the large language model. So using this prompt injection, this will enable the attackers to manipulate how the output of my LLM will be. You know already the importance of prompt. The prompt is the one which is going to uh, decide how my output of my LLM will be, right? So this prompt injection will enable such attackers to manipulate the output of that LLM. So you have just go through this blog now that you have understood this important term. So they have just given some more details about the same. Okay, just go through it at a very high level and that will help you to answer some of the questions in the examination, because it's a wide variety of questions that they will have. It's very difficult to predict which learner will get what, so it's important that you prepare it in a way that you cover all the topics in an efficient manner. So this is important. And NGC catalog, I've already talked about the NGC catalog in our slide. So this over here, I think this is the same blog that I've talked about, I guess, or it's a different one. Okay. Build AI, enterprise grade AI with Nvidia AI software. They've just talked about how you can make, what is this NGC catalog? Okay. So this, as I've described earlier, it helps the companies in accelerating their AI development. It has a lot of predefined solutions. So it provides the containers. So it has got a lot of features which explain in depth about what I've mentioned in the slide. Okay, this is about the, yeah, this is about the NGC catalog. And once you have went through it, if you want to recap and recollect of what we have discussed so far at a very high level, I highly recommend you to check out their Trustworthy AI page from Nvidia. So whatever the slides that I have created, so it's, I can say that it's inspired and getting the content specifically from this NVIDIA site. So if you take a look at this site, and you'll also be able to uh, like link what we have discussed in the class with what is trustworthy AI according to the NVIDIA. Okay, they clearly define what is trustworthy AI. AI should respect privacy, data protection regulation, operate in a safe and secure way. It should be transparent, accountability, avoiding the bias. So the 5 pillars that I've talked about, the same is covered over here in this NVIDIA page. So by going through this page at a very high level, just have, you don't have to memorize anything, just going through it at a very high level, that is more than enough. And more importantly, okay, there's one more, that is what is explainable AI. So yeah, this is also one more important one. So if you remember, I think one of the key pillar is explainability of AI, which is called as XAI. So there's a blog which discusses about this XAI. Okay, so please go through this to get some more perspective about what is explainability AI or explainable AI. Okay, these are the key resources that I've got. Now, based on these key resources and the slide topics, there's a first assignment for you. So, folks, the first assignment for you is, so each learner is expected to list down 15 important points from this trustworthy AI and share it with your co-learners in our WhatsApp group. Here, remember guys, the reason that we have kept this, because when you share 15, so if each and every learner in the batch is sharing the 15, you can count how many number of points. I'm sure there will be some repetition, but the key thing is you will be able to go through, even if there is a repetition, you'll be able to revise. And more importantly, you will be learning from each other. So that's the importance of community. When you as a learner are learning together, you'll be progressing together. And remember, guys, okay, generosity always fuels positivity. So always focus on contributing your unique insights. That means don't copy. Okay. So please come up with your own. It's fine if you guys have between each other, like most of you can have a same thought when you're listing down the important points, when you're going through these key resources, but avoid copying. Okay. So generosity fuels positivity. So like we say it as focus on contributing your unique insights rather than solely consuming the ideas from others. All right. So I hope everyone are clear with the assignment one. So, so folks, if you're clear with assignment one and if you're going to submit in 2 days, so please confirm by typing as yes in the chat window to confirm that you're submitting in 2 days. Okay. Thank you, Davis, Faizan. So I need commitment from each of you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Ravi. Okay. Perfect. So thank you so much, guys, for your confirmation. So yes, so please submit and share it with each other. And in case when you're getting stuck or when you're learning, if you're having any questions, please don't hesitate to post your questions in the WhatsApp group or reach out to me. I'll do my best to answer the questions that you might have. Okay. Now, by covering these topic, so I'm 100% confident that you'll be able to answer any of the questions from this trustworthy AI topic, right? So what's the next learning journey that we have got? So the next concept that we have right now is, let's do one thing. Let's take a look into our study guide. So we have captured this 10%. Now let's do one thing. Let's pick up the next topic, which is called as the data analysis. Okay. So here under this data analysis, so this is more to do with building the intuition and understanding the same. So here, when I'm explaining this, I'll be making use of the graph. I'll be making use of some code as well in our future session. But let me remind you, the coding is not mandatory for the examination. So I'll be using the coding to just to show you the visualization. Okay, so using that visualization and also show you the importance of such visualization as we progress in the learning journey. So the next topic that we'll be covering is the data analysis. So we'll be covering this data analysis in detail in the next session. For now, let's have an introduction to this data analysis, and we'll start with a very basic concept about what is data and what are the types of data. Okay, that's how we'll be proceeding. Okay, so let's proceed ahead, team. Okay, so here we'll start with the basics of data. So first of all, let's try to understand what is data. So when we say data, so I'll just say, I can say data as a collection of facts. Okay, a collection of facts is what we call it as a data. Okay, which doesn't have any meaning to the data. Like for example, I can collect the temperature for last 10 days, and this last 10 days data, last 10 days temperature is what I can call it as actually as a data. So that's what we call it as a data. It's just a collection of facts. Okay. Now, when we say information, information is nothing but when we perform the analysis on the data set. If I perform the analysis on the data, that's when we call it as an information is actually obtained. Okay. Now, if I have, let's say, last 10 days temperature, if I go ahead and let's say perform the analysis, maybe I'll simply take an average of last 10 days temperature. Now, what that average value is going to tell me, that average value will now tell me the information about the 10 days weather, that is the 10 days temperature. So whenever I do the analysis on that data, we call it as an information is received from that data. Okay, that's the basic idea about this data and the information. Now, the way that we perform the analysis or the way that we derive the information is dependent on the type of data that we have got. So let's start with basics of data from the perspective of statistics. So when I say types of data, there are two types of data. One is numerical data, and we also have something called as categorical data. So this is what we can actually classify the data as. Like I can classify it as a numerical data, and the other one is called as a categorical data. So under this numerical data, we can actually further categorize it into discrete data. Okay. And the other one, we call it as the continuous data. Under the categorical data, we can call it as the ordinal data. Okay. And the other one, let me just let me just confirm you guys. Okay. It's ordinal data and nominal data. Okay. It's ordinal data and the nominal data. So this is how we categorize the data. Now, why this understanding of this categorization is important? Well, depending on type of data, the analysis and the plot that we create is going to vary. Okay, hence it is important that we understand how we can identify such data. So let's start with the categorical data. So under this categorical data, we have ordinal and the nominal data. Now, when we talk about this ordinal data, so first of all, let's define what is categorical data. Categorical data is a non-numeric data. So the non-numeric data is what we call it as a categorical data. Now to give you an example, let's say favorite color, nationality, gender. Okay. So all these are the examples of the categorical data. Now under this categorical data, we have ordinal and nominal. So what is an ordinal data? It's a type of data where it follows the sequence or it follows the order. Like for example, okay, let me just give you a very simple illustration. Okay, when we talk about this ordinal data, let's say I've got a column which describes about the review, okay, the review values that I've got in a given data set. So let us suppose this is a column in my data set which talks about review. The possible values that we have got are excellent, good, bad, average, good, excellent. So like this, a column of my data set has got these kind of values. Now, if you observe closely, I can now safely say that this review belongs to the categorical data. That's for sure because it's non-numeric in nature. Now, if you observe closely, the way we interpret these values in this column of this categorical data is very different. Like for example, we will interpret the excellent as the one which has got a very highest score. And I can say bad is the one which has got very lowest score. Like for example, I'll say bad as 1, average as 2, good as 3, maybe excellent as 4. So this is how I actually treat, or if I want to assign a numerical value to it, this is how I'll be ordering the values that we have got. So we can call this kind of data wherever there is an ordering that is involved, even though it's non-numerical in nature, we call it as the ordinal data. Okay. Now we have another kind of data that's called as a nominal data. So we call a data as a nominal data if it is consisting of just labels. So when I say label, there is no ordering that is involved. Like I'll give you an example. Okay. There's one more column. Let's say it describes about favorite color of a person. Okay. Then here, the favorite color may be blue, black, red, violet, let's say black, pink. So like this, we have the collection of values that are present in this column, or it can be nationality, which describes the person's nationality, or it can be gender. So you can take any such example. In such example, like nowhere we are saying that red is greater than black or violet is greater than blue. Like all of them are having the equal importance. There's no specialty or there's no favoritism or there's no sequence when we think about favorite color or nationality. So when we have those kind of data where there is no ordering in the labels, we call that data as a nominal data. Okay, we call that data as a nominal data. Now, when we are dealing with such nominal data and the nominal data and the ordinal data, that is when we are dealing with categories. Okay, in most of the key scenarios, one of the common way that we use it in order to convert the data is one hot encoding. So this is one of the commonly used technique in order to transform such categorical data. We'll be learning about this one hot encoding in a practical way in the next session. For now, remember that when we are working with the categorical data, we'll be using this one hot encoding technique on features. Now, if I'm dealing with the ordinal data, and if I have such ordinal data in, let's say, the target column, then I'll be making use of a technique that's called as label encoder. Okay, it's a label encoder. So here, if I like, as I mentioned, we'll be showing you the demo in the next session. But if you take a look into this label encoder, it clearly specifies we use this on the target variables, that is y. Okay, so that means if I'm dealing with ordinal data, if it is part of output, then apply the label encoder. So these are the two transformation techniques that we'll be applying whenever we are working with the data set. Okay. So when you're dealing with ordinal data, you will be generally using the one-hot encoding on features. And if it is target, you'll be using the label encoder. For nominal data, where there is no ordering, you'll be performing the one-hot encoding on features only. Okay. This is how we will be transforming the data. So depending on type of the data, you will apply some techniques in the backend so that you'll be able to apply the machine learning models or the analysis in a better learning way, so better manner. So that's the reason that you are going to apply this technique on these type of data. Then here I have described about the discrete data and the continuous data under this numerical. Now, when I have a discrete values, okay, so like if I talk about discrete data, okay, so if I talk about the discrete data, so if the data that I have got, okay, if the data that I have got can take only a certain values, okay, if the data that we have got can take only a certain values, then we call it as a discrete data. Okay, in majority of scenarios, when we call the discrete data from the numerical standpoint, so key things that you need to remember is it has, okay, countable elements. Okay, it has countable and limited number of values. Okay, and can take only certain size or a certain values. Like to give you an example, I'll just say example as shoe size. So if you consider the shoe size as an example, okay, so it can have a countable number of shoe size. Like for example, maybe the shoe size can start with 2, and at the max maybe it can go till 15. Okay, so it can have such countable values. It can take only like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe 6.5, 7.5, something like it's a some finite number. Okay, it's a limited number of value. Then in such scenario, we call that data as a discrete data. Or it can be as simple as how many times, how many items that you have got in a stock, or how many new clients have onboarded in the previous quarter. So here, in such scenario, okay, in such scenario, we'll be calling the data as a discrete data. We have another type of data, that's the continuous data. In the case of this continuous data, these are the values that can be measured, okay? And it can have values from infinite range. Like to give you an example, a salary of a person. Like if you want to predict the, like if you want to like represent the salary of a person, so a salary can range between between, let's say, like the salary can have any value. Okay, it can have any value. Like for an easier way to remember it as any value that you would come across or any column that you would come across with decimal. Okay, I'll simply say number with decimal. So we can think of it as a continuous data, like the temperature, weight, or salary, years of experience. So like if we, these are all some of the examples of the continuous data where the number with the decimal point is called as a continuous data. Okay. Now, when we are dealing with such data, so if I'm dealing with the discrete values with limited number of categories, here in this case, in most of the scenarios, we will be applying the one-hot encoding. If I do not want to consider the numerical values over there, like for example, if I have the shoe size as an example, if I have a column which contains the information about the shoe size, and if I want to read each and every shoe size with the same weightage, that's when I'll be making use of this one-hot encoding. Now, maybe in some cases, I just want to keep the values as it is. Then in such scenario, we'll not do the transformation. We'll use the one-hot encoding to assign same weightage, okay, to assign the same weightage for all the discrete values. And when we are dealing with the continuous data, here
we make use of two types of transformer, like two data transformer. One is called as standard scalar, and the other one is called as min-max scalar. So these are the two types of data pre-processing that we'll be using in order to modify the data set. So this is the basics about the types of data and what are the ways in which we categorize this data set and how we can actually perform the transformation on this given data set depending on the type of data. So what we have learned today is the basics about this data, which is essential for our data analysis. In the next session, we'll continue further. We'll try to understand more about this, understanding the data standpoint and how we can analyze such data. We'll also talk about the types of plot. Okay. And we'll also understand, okay, I've just defined the definition about what is encode, one hot encoding and label encoder. So I'll try to simplify it and help you understand the intuition behind these techniques. And we'll continue further in the next session, team. So that would be the agenda in the coming session. Okay. Now I've got an activity for you guys. So each day I'll be sharing the activity. Okay. So I would request a volunteer to explain the learnings from a specific page. So each day we'll pick up one of the page from Nvidia site. So you can just prepare notes or you can list down the point. And each day anyone can volunteer to choose one of the like page. So like one page that I'm recommending is the Nvidia AI platform. So I want a volunteer for tomorrow who will take up this activity, just go through it and explain, summarize it. What are the key things that they have learned and what is it that is mentioned in this page? Okay, so this will be a good learning experience for the person who is presenting as well as the people in the group. So that's the activity that we'll be doing it. So I see Faizan. Faizan has said that he'll take it up. That's amazing, Faizan. So yes, I'll share the link over here right now in the chat window, and I'll also send the same, like share the same link in the group as well. Please, like there's no mandate that you have to create presentation. You can just simply create Word document and list down the points, like whichever the way that you would prefer, you can do it, guys. So prepare it in a way so that you can share it. Like my recommendation is you can just create a text document or Word document, create it, and once you have presented your learning, just share it in our WhatsApp group so that it will be a resource for others as well. Okay, so with this, we come to the end of today's session, guys. Now, folks, yeah, so I just want to have a quick check-in with you. Were you able to follow along with me so far in this session from start to end? Or is there any improvement that you would feel like that you want me to do? So because since it's a live boot camp, I want to ensure that you get the maximum out of it. So if you're clear, if everything is going good, so please confirm by typing in as all good. If you feel like something needs to be improved, so please let me know as well. So I want to ensure that you get the best out of this. Okay. So folks, thank you so much again, guys. I hope you're understanding the difference between the self-paced and the live training. So if you have any suggestion as well to ensure that we can improve further, to ensure your inclusion in this program, I'm open to suggestion. We'll ensure that we'll implement it. Okay. So Faizan says, suggest to have some real question. That's correct, Faizan. So we'll be having it as we progress in the learning journey. Since it's an introductory session, we didn't have it. Sure, we'll definitely include it in the next session. Okay, thank you, Davis. Thank you, Sumita. Okay, thank you so much again, everyone. Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, I thought I had introduced, some of you might have attended the orientation session, so hence I didn't go for the introduction. Okay, so let me just share about myself. My name is Nachiket Murthy. So I'll be your instructor throughout this overall boot camp. So like for the folks who have missed the orientation session, so I'll ask the team to upload the orientation session. So in the orientation session, we just went through some of the quick guidelines about the same and my introduction. So I've got more than 11 years of experience and I'm working with one of the consulting firm. And I've got an opportunity to create multiple courses with manifold AI learning, which are the self-paced one. And I've trained more than 500,000 learners throughout the globe through these self-paced courses, and more than 50,000 learners through live bootcamp. So that's about me. So I'm glad that I got an opportunity with you guys to interact and share my learnings. So yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. So for the learners, let me share if you have not connected with me on LinkedIn. All right. So this is my LinkedIn ID. Feel free to connect with me, folks. So I look forward to seeing you on our next class. Okay. So take care, everyone. Thank you, Chandrasekhar. Okay. So folks, I'll be here in case if you've got any question, please feel free to let me know. Or in case if you want to speak, you can also, yeah, unmute yourself as well in case if you want to speak to me. Okay. Thank you, Chandrasekhar. Thank you, Faizan. Okay. Thanks a lot, team. Take care.
So guys, you have watched till the end. So first of all, thank you for watching till the end. So if you like the way that we cover the topics and you want to learn with us on live, so do check out the live bootcamp. Or if you want to learn through these self-paced videos, do check out the self-paced videos as well. Okay. So I hope to see you next time. Take care.